Bella has a condition called Trisomy 18. And Trisomy 18 is a condition, if you look it up, it says incompatible with life. I was told by everybody that she was going to die, and there was really nothing we could do about it. So that's how I looked at it. A couple months later, she's now 5 months old. At some point, she just stops breathing. And we rushed her to the hospital. And I walked into the NICU, and I had her arm on a board. And so I went over there and put my pinky in her hand so she could hold it. And I just realized that she was going to die, or very likely could die. And I said, Lord, you pull this little girl through, and I promise I'm all in. When you're in politics, you're in the arena. They don't mind you being pro-life. You can be pro-life. You can be pro-marriage. Fine. Just don't talk about it. They make you pay a price. And the price is not just what they say to you, but what they do to your wife and kids. If you're doing things for the Lord, He is going to bless you far beyond whatever you have given. To have the opportunity to stand up for Christ and to stand up for His truth and to suffer for it is just gain.
Do people recognize you everywhere you go?
No.
Did they used to?
Yeah.
So did anybody recognize you on the plane, like just on the way before I picked you up?
You know, that's a hard question to answer. When I travel with people will say to me, "Do you realize how many people turn around and look at you, or they pass you and you don't even notice that they, and I don't notice. I don't really care to notice. Doesn't really matter to me. But I had something happen. I work at Newsmax, and so I had something happen that I was there last week and I had lunch and went to a little Chinese restaurant, just takeout, and grabbed it. And I thought, I'll just eat it here. So they had a little counter, and so I just started eating it real quick because I had to go back and do a show. And some guy walks up and he does this. He starts looking over at me at the table and he says, "You look like Rick Santorum. Are you Rick Santorum?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." He says, "Well, I just have to say, you suck." And I didn't see that coming. And I said, "Yeah." I said, I sort of expect that when I come to New York City. Yeah. And he said, "Well, we New Yorkers," he said, "we'll tell it to your face." He said, "I'm not going to go on the internet and say bad things about you, but if I see you, I'm going to tell you to your face." I said, "I appreciate that." And he got up and walked away. So there you go.
Wow. Okay.
So I guess some people still do recognize me.
Maybe the people that really like you and appreciate you. Like if I saw you, I'd recognize you, and then I would intentionally leave you alone. Probably people who really like you feel sorry for you and want to leave you alone.
Maybe. I mean, I remember when I was more famous than I am today, and certainly more recognized than I am today. When I would travel, I would have people come up to me on occasion, not very often, but on occasion. And the most remarkable thing, I have to tell you, was, and I don't know whether it's just, take it for what it is. And I would always ask, and he would come and said something, I'd always ask, where are you from? And I don't exaggerate this, that of the people who would come up to me and make a point to say hello, 70% of them were from Alabama.
Wow.
I have no idea why. Wow. I don't know what is in the water in Alabama. And the interesting thing was that, when I ran for president back in 2012, I actually won the state of Alabama. Yeah. So there you go. So at some level, I connected with Alabama better than anywhere else.
Well, the good country folk, I guess.
I have no problems with that. I actually consider that a point of pride.
That's awesome. Well, this is going to be exciting. Just so our audience knows, and you've graciously agreed to do a 2-part series with me. Episode 1 is going to be Faith and Family, which we're in now. And episode 2, or part 2, is going to be kind of country and culture. And the reality is they just overlap. I mean, for your life, they just clearly overlap. And that's fine, but we're going to try to avoid the temptation of going down a rabbit hole of like foreign policy while we're in episode 1, you know. But if family encroaches on foreign policy in episode 2, fine. That's fine, because I think the family and faith is actually more important. But we got a lot of questions, but kind of to begin by introducing you, because here's the thing. Anyone my age or older needs absolutely no introduction to Rick Santorum, but I thought I was a total failure as a parent when I mentioned to some of my older teenage young adult sons, Rick Santorum's coming. Who's that? I'm like, oh my gosh, and here's the thing. It's like, it's just a different generation, right? I mean, I was in law school and college when you were, winning elections and, on the front page every day. And a lot of time's gone by since then. So I was just kind of shocked. You've been out of politics since 2016. Is that right?
I ran for president last in 2016.
Yeah. So it's been a
years,
while. And
years.
you left the Senate in 2008.
Seven.
So
almost 20 years.
Yeah. So if you're 20,
right,
you just don't know. Yep. Right. So so I'm not going to read your bio, but I want to tell people, my audience, kind of why this is such an enormous honor for me. So to sit here with really one of the last cultural warriors, the politician who was, I think, the working man's moral compass, the blue-collar conscience in a white-collar world, the Iowa caucus winner with a working-class creed and a woke-class culture. You've been the Thomas More of the day, but you kept your head, but would have given it up if you had to. So to my listeners, Senator Santorum has walked the halls of power, but knelt in the quiet of prayer. He has raised his voice for those who have been silenced. He has defended the unborn, while the suffering in his own home taught him the dignity of human life. He has carried the weight of politics, yet never laid down the cross of faith. He has stood when it was easier to sit and bowed when others demanded applause. He has lost elections, but kept his soul. He has lived not for ease, but for truth, not for the praise of men, but the pleasure of God. And so again, officially, welcome to this table. It's such a great honor to be with you.
Well, I just feel like, as I tell everybody when I discuss my career, I'm the most blessed man that's ever walked the earth. And to be blessed, to have the opportunity to stand up for Christ and to stand up for his truth, and to suffer for it is just gain. I mean, it's just, and the gain is because you're called to do that, right? But I mean, it's almost embarrassed to say it, but God has blessed me so much for that. And people always worry, that if you do things, you're going to suffer the cost. If you're doing things for the Lord, he is going to bless you far beyond whatever you have given, right? Yeah. And over and over and over and over in my life, it's true today. It's true every day. And it's wonderful to hear you say what you say, but it's all him. And to hear that and to think that God has used me in ways that I don't deserve and had no intention of ever doing. When I got into this political game, that was not my gig. That was not what I was going to do. That was never going to get involved in any of these issues. I was never going to be a culture warrior. I was never going to be a truth teller, other than just, in a sense, what I would say the modern day truth teller of transparency and honesty, and as far as how government was running, but was never going to wade into these moral cultural issues because that was a battlefield that nobody survives. Yeah. And I learned that early in politics, that you just stay away from that stuff. If you want a career, you can't go there. Yeah. And lots of things happened in my life that changed me and ended going in that direction.
Well, we're going to get into that. And I've read enough about you and just remember from, history, a number of them. But I thought, I've done a number of podcasts now, and sometimes I finish it at the end of it all with rapid fire questions. And I find that that's everyone's favorite part.
Okay.
So You ready for some rapid fire questions?
Yeah, I'm not sure I could give you short answers.
That's all right. We got all time in the world.
I'm not great at short answers.
That's okay. It's
all
okay.
Right.
So, all right. I just think these questions are kind of goofy, but it's kind of like, let's get to know the man Rick, as opposed to the great politician, the husband, the father, just the guy,
Okay.
All right, ready? Here we go.
Go.
Early riser or night owl?
Yes.
Okay, both. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
During my heyday, I was a 4 to 5 hour night sleeper, and now I'm slowed down. I'm a 5 to 6.
Okay.
But and after 6 hours, I'm up. I can't go back to sleep.
All right. Introvert or extrovert?
I almost answer yes to that. I mean, certainly you have to be an extrovert to go out into politics, but there's if you talk to people who know me, I'm not the person who's out there driving the conversation. I tend to try to listen and sort of try to add or influence the discussion, but I tend not to dominate the discussion and sort of try to be the center of attention in personal ways. But at the same time, if as I do, I feel like if I'm out there on my vocation, then I'm very much of an extrovert. I'm very much out there, going to battle. But daily life is not a battle. It shouldn't be. Personal life is not a battle. And I just sort of deal with it differently.
Yeah, actually, I think as I've read on introvert and extrovert, it's really more of not whether you're talkative. It's where you get your energy, right? So do you get your energy from outside stimulus, and does that wake you up? Or do you get your energy from within because of the ideas and the passion and the feeling? And that's an introvert. Like, I get my energy from within, not from without. And so I'll talk all day about my ideas, but it's coming from within.
Yeah, then if that's your definition, which it's an interesting definition, I would say I'm definitely more of an introvert. Yeah. I've learned, and I'm not sure that's always been the case, but over time I've learned less to react to external things, let them sort of run off your back and just sort of make sure you're focused on the things that matter, that drive you, instead of you being driven.
More scientist or more artist?
Wow. I wouldn't call myself either. I don't think I'm particularly an artist as far as any kind of talent. I have none. I mean, no musical talent, no artistic talent, no talent.
You're not painting portraits like George Bush?
I can't draw stick figures that look good. I mean, I have none. And scientifically, I mean, I guess I have.
You're a data guy.
I'm a data guy and an analytical guy. I mean, I'm a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I'd say so, yes. But at the same time, I think if you've ever watched me, on the campaign trail or on the floor of the Senate, there is a passion that comes forward that you can say is performative. Mm-hmm. So I'd say there's a little bit of each, not too much of either.
Well, we're going to watch one of those performances, or that's not the right word, but we're going to watch one of those floor debates.
Oh, okay. I
got some clips, man.
Okay.
I had a field day going through this stuff.
Okay.
All right. Favorite sport? I think I know the answer.
Well, I'm a golfer. I mean, I love to golf. I don't play it that much, but I do. That's sort of my go-to. I mean, as far as watching, I mean, I'm a baseball and hockey fan, believe it or not. Those are the two things that
really hockey. Huh?
Yeah.
See, we have like none of that down here.
Yeah. Carolina Hurricanes.
Okay. See, I don't know anything about it.
They're pretty. Now it's over in Raleigh. It's not Charlotte, but I mean, they're a very, very good team. So yes, I grew up, believe it or not, playing baseball and loving baseball and then sort of following it. But my second love has been hockey.
Cool.
I come from Pittsburgh and we've been blessed with incredible talent, and Lemieux and Crosby and Yager and Malkin and all these great players. And so I just, I became involved. And then when I was in the Senate, I actually got involved in actually saving the Penguins from leaving Pittsburgh.
Really?
And so once I did that, I worked with Lemieux to save the team and keep it in Pittsburgh back in 25 years ago. I've sort of felt an attachment to the team, and sort of that's been a little bit my passion.
Favorite book? Can't say the Bible.
Yeah, it's interesting. And my wife always gets mad at me when I say this. But I always say the book that I think had the biggest impact on my life, not maybe my favorite book, but the book that was The Little Engine That Could.
Oh, wow. Okay.
that was a book that I couldn't get enough of. And I just, it was something my dad, who was an immigrant to this country, just talked about, the never give up and just keep plowing through. You don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to be the biggest. You don't have to be the best. You just have to be perseverance. And I think if you look at my life, that's probably been the most outstanding virtue that I have, is that I don't give up, and I'm not afraid of taking the risk to go out and do things that I probably have no business doing. But I've been blessed with it, and I do know that I always felt that someone may be smarter than me, they may be more talented than I am, whatever the case, but no one's going to work any harder than I am. And so that little book, which I read to all my grandchildren now, I read to my kids, was the book that probably had the biggest impact on my life. I know my wife gets embarrassed. Why aren't you saying the Summa or something?
Something, yeah.
I said, well, maybe that tells you a little bit about me.
That's good. It's really good. It's really good. Favorite saint?
Thomas More.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I had a portrait of him in my office.
Yeah.
It was right across from my desk. I would look at it every day.
Wow.
And, read Man for All Seasons, read biographies of him, and just, I look at everything that I've ever been through in my political career, and look, I haven't dealt with all of it well. I mean, because some of it's very painful and hurt a lot, and hurt my wife and my kids, and so Thomas More didn't have to deal with social media and news networks and things like that, broadcasting to the world every weakness and problem and thing you've ever said or done. But I just looked at everything that I've gone through, and compared to what he went through, it's nothing. And you just learn that okay, yeah, he died and he was executed, but God blessed him so much. I mean, he's now an inspiration for millions and millions of people forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about that?
How about that?
How about that?
That's better than social media.
Better than whatever I'm going to accomplish in my life. Yeah.
Best piece of advice Karen has ever given you?
Wow. There's so many. Well, I mean, the one that popped into my mind just immediately was during my campaign in 2012. I was the warrior, right? And I was out there fighting on the moral and cultural issues, and going out there and claiming my stake and going after the party for its weakness on these issues and unwillingness to stand up, because we had just lost the marriage battle, we had lost the life battle, and frankly, we weren't really fighting. And so I was out there, defending all those things and making the claim that this is, whether they're popular, it doesn't matter, it's right. And on a whole host of other things. I was also the guy out there for the blue collar guy, and making the case that the party had to change. And she was right. I was angry. I mean, I was almost the big tent pastor, going out there with fire and brimstone. And she took me aside and she said, "You're going to lose." She goes, "I don't mind you being a warrior, but be a happy warrior. Be a positive warrior. I mean, fight for the things you fight for." But, God didn't go. One time he lost, he lost his temper and upset the money changers at the temple, right? But he didn't go out there and win converts by yelling at them and condemning them and screaming at them. And really, that was the inflection point of my campaign. I was going nowhere. And I started to, I listened to my wife, which I don't do as much as I should. And that sort of changed the whole trajectory of what I was doing. So that's the thing that
it's good.
Popped into my mind first and foremost.
Be a happy warrior.
Happy warrior.
Favorite Pope?
John Paul II. I mean, I had opportunities, amazing opportunities. I could tell stories for half an hour about I met two saints in my life. I met John Paul II and met Mother Teresa. And I met John Paul II on several occasions. And had, read a lot, obviously read his encyclicals and read Crossing the Threshold of Hope, which was to me a really impactful book for me. And just the opportunities I had to meet him was, and my family had an opportunity to meet him, was, life-changing.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. What's more stressful, a presidential debate on television or a road trip with 7 little kids in the car?
That's a tough one.
That's why I asked.
Because the presidential debate is, I can't, it's very stressful. I mean, I've been through 30 of them.
Oh my gosh.
And wow. 30 presidential debates. And I will tell you, each one you get tight. And the 7 kids in a car though is it's just a different kind of stress. It's just it's a debilitating stress. Right?
Dude, I know.
Yeah.
I know so well.
Whereas a stress for a campaign, for a debate, is an energizing stress. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's you gotta be sharp. You gotta be, it's to sort of drive out the best in you, to sort of the fear, what is it, fight or flight. Yeah. So that kind of adrenaline that's pumping through you, that stress, whereas being in a car with 7 kids is not driving you to be a better person. I mean, it's how do I avoid not being the caveman?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so in that respect, I guess it's harder.
Okay. All right. Good. Favorite food?
I guess anything Italian, pretty much.
Say, yeah,
I mean, I grew up in an immigrant family, and we had all the traditional Italian foods, and that's sort of my go-to. So I'd say that. But I mean, I don't vary a lot. I like a few other different sort of cuisines, if you will, but not many.
One thing politics taught you about fatherhood?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind was the story of my son Gabriel. You mentioned 7 children. We do have 7 children, but my wife and I had 14 pregnancies. And one of those pregnancies was in 1996 when I was in the United States Senate, and it was at the time I had just decided after 4 years of being in the House of Representatives and 1 year of being in the Senate, and we can talk about this, but I'd gone through a transformation in my life to where I was a check the box Catholic, to where I actually started to practice my faith, right? And that where God and Jesus became the center of my life, not just something I did on Sundays or something that I would say, "What do you believe all these things?" Well, I could say, "Yes, I believe all these things." But, were they the motivation in your life? Were they the reason for your life and what you're about? And the answer was no. And, but that transformation, believe it or not, I always say I came to the United States Senate and I found the Lord, and it was really true. And it was a combination of a church that we went to, and when we moved to Virginia, because my family moved from Pittsburgh down to Virginia, and had the opportunity to go to a church and with a pastor there who just was on fire, and just, I remember leaving after the first time I went to that church, and he gave a homily, and I walked out and I thought, I was so angry. I said, been going to Catholic churches for 36 years and, never really heard the gospel, never really heard, that impact on me, and, what the Eucharist meant and all these things. I mean, I grew up in a culturally Catholic, I was Italian, grew up in a culturally Catholic area, and it was just sort of, you mailed it in. It was just sort of rote. And unfortunately, I think that's, by the way, most people grew up in my generation, and maybe even worse today. I don't know. But it's funny, you go to Northern Virginia, and you'd think it's one of the most horrible liberal areas of the country. It's suburban Washington.
We lived there for 3 years.
And yet the Diocese of Arlington is one of the best in the country.
Great churches, great pastors.
Great churches, great pastors. I think they just ordained like 15 or 20 seminarians this year. I mean, it's just on fire.
And shout out to Father Scalia.
Yeah, Father Scalia is great. Well, this was Father Fasano, and Father Fasano is a well-known pastor. He's now retired. I mean, to tell you about Father Fasano, when I started going to the church, we were looking around. It wasn't our parish, but we didn't like the parish it was pretty empty, in my opinion. And we heard about this other church, so we went. And I go there, and there's Justice Scalia and Justice Thomas in the church, and you figure,
wow,
maybe this might be a good place to go,
wow.
right? And so, yeah, we were known. And when I started going there during the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s, as the conservative church. This is where all the crazy, Republican conservatives went. But I came to the Senate, had this transformation, and this issue of partial birth abortion came up.
We're going to talk about it a lot.
Okay, well, I'll leave it there.
I got a whole section. I got a section on Gabriel. I got a section on Bella.
Okay, so the thing that struck me when we lost our son during the midst of all this, and we can go into the detail, was, I didn't understand how I could have gone through this transformation of my life to really center my life more around God. And the first major thing that happens is I lose my son.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, this is not how it's supposed to work, right? This is, when you go out there and you step forward, you don't get hammered like this. I mean, you get hammered by the world, but then, God, what are you doing here? And one of the things that really made sense to me, and we can go, I'm shortcutting, which hopefully we'll get into in more depth, was I had an opportunity when he was born. He lived 2 hours. My wife and I held him during that 2 hours. I baptized him. Mm-hmm. And during that 2 hours of life, he knew nothing but love, and he's in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And a very wise person said to me, your job as a father, the only job you really have, is to make sure you shepherd your children to heaven, period.
Yeah.
If you accomplish that goal, you're a winner, right? You've done the job that your Father in heaven has given you to be the father of his children on earth. And so in the end, all that matters is the end. And Gabriel taught me that. And that's a lesson that I take to this day for the rest of my kids and my grandkids.
That's amazing. Hey, Kevin, there is an image I've seen online of Gabriel's baptism. It's in the hospital, and I think your family's just gathered together on the time you're baptizing.
I don't think that's right. It was 3:00 in the morning, and it was just my wife and I there, and no one was there taking pictures.
Well, there's some image I saw, like
really?
Maybe it was the day that you were, maybe it was in your book, maybe it was just like the day that he was baptized. Like you had a family picture, I think it was in the back of your book.
Family picture, if there was one, the family picture, I don't remember.
Could it have been Bella? It could have been Bella.
It could have been Bella.
I'm
gathered
sorry.
around.
I might be, yes.
Yeah.
Scratch that. I'm messing that up, Kevin. I'm sorry. You were gathered around the incubator.
Yes.
And that's Bella.
That's Bella.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah. The interesting is the only picture that we really have of him with the kids was after he passed away. We actually took the body home, mm-hmm. and we did the funeral services at our house, and then had him buried, in a plot next to his grandparents, and we did that, and I think Karen talks about it, and maybe that's where might have been a picture in the book of the picture of her and the kids. I don't remember. I don't think so, but she talks about it in her book, Letters to Gabriel, and you have no idea the vitriol,
the
that
flack
came
you
out.
got from that. Yeah, it's awful.
Oh my gosh,
it's awful. I remember somebody asked you that, I think, in one of the presidential debates.
So
I remember hearing it live.
Okay, so what happened?
And you said she's a neonatal nurse. Like I remember even some of the response.
Yes.
This is going back a long time.
So that happened. It wasn't in a debate, but it happened in Iowa the week right before the caucus in 2012. And I was and at the time, um, during that whole campaign, I was at 2% or 1%. I was going nowhere. And I mean, again, short in the story, we, in the last few weeks, just caught on fire. And here I remember being at, and all of a sudden now everybody starts talking about you. And of course, they start, the left and my opponents start digging out and throwing out opposition research and things like that. And someone printed something in one of these left-wing blogs about how, sort of necromancy and, you carrying around and your dead baby and just horrible things. And, showing the dead baby to the kids and all this kind of stuff, and just nasty, nasty stuff. And there's a program on Fox at the time called Hannity and Combs.
Oh, yeah.
And so Combs lights me up on this and just goes after me as being, this creepy guy and doing creepy stuff. And, he's not fit to be president because, the way how creepy he is. And I knew nothing about it. I'm at a pizza ranch, and I think it was Boone, Iowa. And like at the time, it was like 1,000 people. They couldn't put any more people in. And all of a sudden, all the national media is there covering you. And I'm pretty sure it was Jake Tapper who got up and asked me a question, and basically quoted what Alan Combs said. Here I am, and my wife was there.
Gosh.
And it was one of the hardest. I mean, even to you emotionally, it just rocked me. I was like, wow, how brutal, right? Yeah. And Karen there, she starts crying and she wants to, let it go. And so I did. I mean, she and I both said something, and, we just, she mentioned she was a neonatal intensive care nurse, and how the most important thing when you have a child that dies, at that is for the children to see the baby and to see that the baby was that's their brother, and he's real, and he's in heaven, and and this is, and to love him and to pray to him for his intercession, and all of that, just to make it a concrete event for them to understand what mommy and daddy are going through and what they have experienced that they may not understand. And anyway, we survived that, and the next day Alan Combs called me.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. And because I had worked at Fox, and I'd known him and done his show many, many times, and we had I thought, a reasonably good relationship. And he called me, and he fell on his sword. He just said, I just can't believe what a jerk I was. I'm so sorry.
Well, good for him.
No, I like I said, I mean, it's one of those things where most people on the other side, not all, but most people on the other side, they're just misled and they're just misguided. I mean, they believe the lies, and they're not necessarily bad people. I mean, we tend to like to demonize the folks who don't agree with us, but most of the folks that I've dealt with, think they're doing the right thing, and they're just not.
Yeah. If two last rapid fire questions. It's not so rapid fire.
I told you.
I know, it's good.
Guaranteed you.
It's
at
beautiful.
The beginning.
It's beautiful. What virtue are you trying to grow in right now?
I mean, I'm so poor on most of them. Humility is a real struggle for me. It's always been, the whole pride issue, and when you're in public life, it's just really, really easy. I mean, it was a horrible cross that I did not bear well in my political life, and so that continues to be a big problem. Mm-hmm. That you just have to continue to just pray for, not wanting to. I mean, the prayer of humility, the litany of humility.
Oh yeah, I know it. Yeah.
I can't. I mean, I wish I could say it. I mean, it's just I I know Clarence Thomas is somewhat of a friend. I consider him a friend. And he prays that every day. He tells me he prays that every day. I said, I can't. I mean, I can't pray a prayer that I can't say, well, I really don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It's hard.
I mean, it is. And you say, well, and so I just struggle with that. It's all about God, and I can get that, but some of the demands are hard.
Talking about praying prayers that you don't necessarily want to say, the Lord's Prayer, when you say, forgive us our trespasses as we
forgive.
Man, that's a killer, because I don't want him.
Yeah, see,
I want him to forgive me way more than I forgive other people.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
That's what I mean by it.
Okay. Yeah. If you look at it that way, I mean, I guess, I think that's one of the virtues I'm actually pretty good at is forgiveness. And one of the things that I've sort of learned that as all the mistakes that I've made in my life and all the forgiveness I needed, it's really helped me to understand that I need that grace upon me is something I have to do. And it's so healing to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm okay, much better with that. Not good, but much better with that than I am with the litany of humility.
All right. Last rapid fire question, which is the segue into the section I just call Karen.
Okay.
If Karen was the patron saint of something, what would it be?
Two things that really pop out on Karen is, mother. I mean, she is an incredible, our children are amazing, and I wish I could say I take a lot of credit for it. I sort of think of my children and her role, which is, she was the person there day in, day out. We homeschooled our kids. She homeschooled our kids. I would say we.
No,
we. It's the royal
It's
we.
like when we say we had a baby.
We had a baby, yeah.
Sort of.
I homeschooled one of my children for 1 year by myself.
Wow.
And
that's more than I can say.
I did that 1 year, first grade for one of our sons. And there's a long story behind that, but I won't bore you. And but she homeschooled the kids. She took care of, she was and is now as the grandmother. Every day she's somewhere doing something, and she's there on the difficult times. We've had some crises with our grandchildren, and she's the go-to, and she's and I'm sort of I'm the atmosphere, right? I'm the atmosphere in which all this happens. And when I say that, in the sense that I think my vocation sort of set the framework as to who our family is, right? Yes. I always thought, that's one of the things my dad taught to me about, is that what does it mean to be a Santorum? What does it mean to be a member of this family? What do we stand for? What are our values? Who are we? And I could be wrong, but I don't think most families think about that. Or most fathers.
Whenever we left the house as kids, my dad would say, remember who you represent. And the answer was faith and family. Mm-hmm. So then, what does that mean? And It makes you think, what am I representing? You know, and how does my behavior reflect on the Gallagher family? And that matters.
Yeah, and I think my life and what I went through in a very public way, they understood what it meant to be a Santorum, right? And so was I there all the time teaching them that? No, but I was the atmosphere in which they breathed and they absorbed. And I think my wife is right to say, you weren't there a lot of the times that, I needed you. And she was absolutely right. I wasn't. But in a sense, she provided much better and much more competently than I would have ever done in providing for those children and raising those children. And I was the atmosphere in which that happened.
Man, I like that analogy a lot. I'm always trying to find different ways to articulate the difference in my wife and I. She's the one making everything happen.
She does.
Sun up to sundown.
Yep.
But I'm always there. but it's a little atmospheric.
Yes.
So I like
that's not to say, look, I've changed more diapers than, I mean, you have to. I mean, it's not like
right.
the
Absolutely.
old days where
no, this is not 1940s.
It's not 1940s. I mean, look,
no.
I clean the kitchen. I do a lot of stuff around the house, but I do a lot of stuff.
But you're working and you're leaving. And
I do a lot of stuff, but she's the constant.
Oh no. Yeah.
Right. And that's the most important thing, is that she was the constant.
Yeah.
Yes, I would pitch in. Yes, when I was home, I would do things. Not that I was an absentee dad.
No.
But that, and I don't mean to, demean myself in that way, because it's not. But she was the linchpin. She is the key. When our kids have an emotional issue, they don't come to me, right? They go to her, right? They have a problem with, their work or their business or what. Yeah, they'll call me, right? They have a financial question, they call me, right? But on the things that are the core of their being, they call their mom.
Wow.
And that's just, I can't tell you how blessed I am. So, I know there are many patron saint of mothers, but she would certainly be one.
I was actually at the actual patron saint of mothers tomb just a couple weeks ago. Monica is the patron saint of mothers, Augustine's mother, and she's buried in the Basilica of St. Augustine in Rome. And I was at her tomb just like 2 weeks ago. Oh. Yeah, it was beautiful.
I was at Rome covering it for Newsmax, covering the conclave for Newsmax.
Were you really?
Yeah, I was there for a whole week, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my life.
Wow.
And so thankful for Newsmax for the opportunity to do that. But yeah, I went through all 4 holy doors, and so that was
is cool.
That was really great.
Speaking of that, so I want to get back to Karen in a minute, but since we got a brand new pope,
yes,
it's kind of cool. And when I was in Rome, he did something kind of amazing. I was there on Corpus Christi Sunday. And so there was an old tradition of a procession holding the monstrance from St. John Lateran to Mary Major. And I don't know, it's maybe like a mile, but they walk like so slow, it takes like an hour.
Yeah.
And I saw Cardinal Sarah in there. But here's the thing. Pope Francis discontinued it. Pope Francis discontinued that tradition a long time ago. Pope Leo brought it back.
Good.
And he carried this 69-year-old dude, right? It was 95 degrees, and he's in his full vestments, plus the extra cape and everything that they wear with the monster. Yeah. This monster's got to be 20 to 30 pounds. Sure. It's huge. He carries this thing out in front of him. The whole way, over an hour. And I'm sitting there thinking, take a 10-pound weight and do that for an hour. It's unbelievable.
Supernatural.
It was incredible. And I'm sitting there saying, this is a statement. First of all, he knows everyth's a symbol. They are aware of that.
Absolutely. I'm sure they are. No doubt about it.
So it was a manly feat. This was a very physically demanding thing, and he did it like it was nothing. And so it was highly inspiring. But that was just a cool thing.
No, it's I'm excited about the opportunity to. I mean, I mentioned that I met John Paul II many times, and he spoke English, but it was his 5th language, right? And so it's not like you can have.
Exactly.
That kind of and so the interesting about this Pope is that Americans can actually communicate with him.
Yeah.
And as someone came up to me and said, I didn't know this, but he was in Chicago in 2012. And so the first thing I want to ask the Pope is, and he voted in the 2012 presidential primaries.
Oh.
There's a record of that.
Oh, who did he vote for? That's awesome.
Just want to know.
Awesome.
Just want to know if the Pope voted for me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, not too many folks you can say that
that's
Pope,
exactly.
I might be the only person in the history. Well, I certainly would be the only person in American history that had a Pope vote for me. How about that?
That is great. Yeah.
So I have to. I mean,
you got to ask.
Part of me says I got to know.
All right, if I ever meet him, I'll ask him.
If you ever meet, please ask. I did know he voted. I had someone came and said, the Pope voted in the 2012 presidential primaries.
Yeah, that's okay. Awesome. That's great. And you will meet him. I mean, the guy went to Villanova. You're going to meet him.
And my daughter went to Villanova.
Yeah, you go. Right. Kevin went to Villanova. That guy right there. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Go Cats.
Yeah. All right. So back to Karen, even though the Pope's pretty interesting to talk about. So, you just gave a great explanation of her as a mother and everything, but I just noticed that we're going to talk about Bella. We're going to talk about maybe Gabriel a little bit more, but Karen was this rock, you were talking about how she's this consistency with the children, but she was with you in your professional life, personal life. So I just wanted to give you the open mic to just say whatever else you wanted to say about this rather remarkable woman who's clearly made a huge impact on your life.
Yeah. I mean, first off, when we met, we were both sort of in the same position with our faith. Both of us were raised. She was one of 12.
Mm-hmm.
She was the 10th of 12 in Catholic family. But she was sort of, at the time we met, she was 28, I was 30. We were both career driven, you know, and we're going to be the top and the best and all that kind of stuff. And she was going to law school later in life after having been a neonatal intensive care nurse.
Sorry, footnote, 14 pregnancies after the age of 28. That's serious.
Serious stuff.
Wow, that you really packed them in. I just want to note that because
yes,
you guys got started a little later.
Our last,
and you made up for it.
Our last baby, she was 48.
Yeah, it's amazing. Sorry. Yeah.
No. So I mean, it's anyway. She and I really took our spiritual journey together. We decided to get married, and you know, obviously wanted to have children. We thought, well, maybe it's time for us to sort of get serious again. And so we got back into the church, sort of Catholic light a little bit, you know, singing in the folk choir, that kind of stuff. And, but it was, she was, you know, every step of the way, holding me to, you know, to sort of keep driving toward this better understanding of what our faith is and how it impacted our life and how it integrated into our life. And you know, she went on my campaign when we got married in May of 1990.
Did you run for Congress like the next month?
She graduated. She graduated. So this way, she graduated from law school in early May. I won my primary for the House, the Congress, and 2 weeks later, we got married 2 weeks after that. We got pregnant 3 months after that, and then I got elected to Congress 2 months after that.
Amazing.
And she was someone who did really well in law school, did better than me in law school, did better on the bar exam than I did. And she was going to, she had a clerkship for the federal judge. And when I won my election, the federal judge she got the clerkship with was a Democrat.
Really?
And so he called her after the election and said, I'm rescinding the offer. You know, I can't, you know, it would be, you know, violation.
Came up with an excuse.
Came up with a lame, bogus excuse. And so she lost her job. So she marries me. She ends up campaigning with me. We knocked on, you know, I knocked like 20,000 doors, and she probably knocked on half that, right? Because she had to work, because I had taken off my job to work full-time on my campaign. And she was the breadwinner of the family. She was a neonatal intensive care nurse and was working as a nurse while I was at. So when she got time off, she would come and knock on doors and do, you know, teas with women and all this kind of stuff. And she was at my side, and I won the biggest election upset of the year. It was an incredible upset. I mean, I always tell this story to tell you how big an upset it was, that the day after the campaign, the night I won, the Wall Street Journal had, back when they only had a print edition, this was, you know, 35 years ago.
On stone tablets.
On stone tablets. On the left-hand side, they had a column, they had little snippets that would talk about stories that are inside, that if you on page stuff, you know, here it is. And at the bottom of that, they'd have a little funny anecdote that they would tell. Well, I was the funny anecdote the day after the election. And it said, last night, the Associated Press reported that such as my opponent, you know, lost his seat. He was a 14-year incumbent, lost his seat in the 18th Congressional District of Pennsylvania. But they didn't say who won.
Wow.
And so we called the National Republican Campaign Committee, which is the campaign committee that runs all of the congressional races in the country for the Republicans. And we called to ask for the name of that person, and they didn't have his name.
Wow.
That's how, I mean, they didn't give me any money. They didn't meet with, they wouldn't help me. So they knew nothing about me. They thought I had absolutely no chance.
Wow.
So they just didn't pay attention to me. And so we were, we came out of that. And again, my political life has been one impossible race after another. And she stood behind and, did whatever she could do, particularly early on, before we had children. And then even afterwards, and we only had, a child, she would put her in the thing and
in a sling,
and off we went, and to events, and, all over the country, down to DC. We'd travel back and forth together. And we had this little apartment that wasn't much of an apartment. And so she was just, intricately involved in every step of the way. And then when I ran for the Senate 4 years later, not only did we had 2 children at the time, but my parents came up and her parents were already there. And so between them, they would sort of watch the little kids. And she spent many, many days on the road by herself. She was your running mate. she didn't, she would come and do events for me, but she was so good on her own that why would I waste her?
Right. Yeah, just divide and conquer.
Yeah, just being like my eye candy, right?
Yeah, right.
But there's no reason for that. So she went out. She was a nurse. She was a lawyer.
I know.
And she went out and talked about healthcare, and she talked about issues that and met with women's groups, and so she was a very big part of our campaign in 1994, and we ended up winning in 94. We beat another incumbent, and I always say we lost, but we won by the smallest margin of anybody in that election cycle. And the question I always ask is, what they call the guy who won by the smallest margin?
The winner?
Senator.
Okay.
Yeah. So we won,
Yeah.
and she was a huge part of that career, and then then we get to the Senate and things sort of change because I got a 6-year term. So I'm not running every 2 years. I'm not running in impossible districts for me to win. The first one, the second one, they redistrict me and put me in a 70% Democratic district, no chance to win. And we pulled that out. And then I run against an incumbent statewide. And again, 1.5 million more Democrats and Republicans, still won. And so we're just, it feels like we're just, pushing this rock up this hill, and it's just, it's this huge thing. And then we get elected, and all of a sudden, 6 years. I have a 6-year term. And that's when things started to happen in our life when it came to our faith, because we were just too busy. Mm-hmm. I think I saw a book up here. It says, "Are you
never too busy? You're never too busy." That's me.
Oh, yeah. You're never too busy. Yeah.
I wrote that book because I'm horrifically busy all the time.
Exactly.
So,
and so that's sort of the way we were. But we were too busy for faith and for the things that were. At the time we got married were important, but they frankly just got set aside.
Yeah.
Because we were on this incredible treadmill. And then I get elected. We decide very shortly after a few months in office that there's no way that we can have our home in Pittsburgh and be in Washington and for me to see my kids. And at that point we were pregnant with number 3.
Okay.
And so we decided to move down, and that's when everything just started to happen. Mm-hmm. And again, she was an incredibly important part of that faith transformation, and she walked the walk with me. And in fact, as normally is the case, a little bit more intently than I did, because I was more distracted. She was much more focused.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't be here without her, and I wouldn't be the person I am without her.
That's awesome. Well, you'll meet my other half tonight at dinner. So, I feel the same way. I'm not that I was a presidential candidate, but I wouldn't have accomplished the little things that I've accomplished without my wife. It's just so obvious to me. The divine providence is very, very clear. I think it's a good time for you to tell us, if you would, about Bella. And a lot of people probably don't know. I've read up on her. I've read your incredible book, Bella's Gift, which is truly a beautiful book.
It's a marriage book.
It is a marriage. You're right.
It's not a book about. It is a book about a disabled baby, but it really is a marriage book. The story behind that book, just to maybe as an intro.
Yeah.
We were asked by a publisher, because Bella became a national figure.
She did. In fact, you became Bella's dad.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Absolutely true. And she became a national figure because during my presidential campaign, after I had won the Iowa caucuses, and even though I was not declared the winner on caucus night, so I didn't win. The winner was Mitt Romney, and he got the bump for the win and then went on to win New Hampshire. 2.5 weeks later, I got declared the winner the morning of the South Carolina primary on page 36 of the New York Times.
What a mess.
Right? And so I was never got any kind of recognition or bump.
Was that on purpose? Was there funny business?
Yes, there was. And we lost by 8 votes. And the next morning, and I was ahead most of the night, back and forth. It was close, and then the last precinct came in, and there's a great story about that. It was like midnight or something like that, and all the precincts except one, and the person who was supposed to submit because you have to call it into the state because it's not run by called into the Republican Party. The caucuses are run by the party, not by the state election commission. Mm-hmm. And so the person who is the precinct chair for that area was supposed to call in the numbers, and she thought she did, but she didn't. And so literally they had to, the county chair had to go to her house and get her out of bed, and they called in the numbers, and I was up by 14 points and lost that precinct by 22, so I lost by 8. The next morning I got a call from a guy in Appanoose County, south of Des Moines, and he insisted that he talk to me, and so they got me on the phone with this guy. He's a precinct chair, and he said, "You won." And I said, "How's that?" And he said, "Well, I'm looking at the Des Moines Register's numbers that they have for my district, for my precinct, and they said that Romney got 22 votes. He got 2.
Oh, man.
And so you won by 12 votes because there's 20 vote difference. So I called the state party chairman like 9 o'clock the next morning. And I said, I went through this. He said, "Yeah, he called here." And I said, "Well, you got to go out and announce." He said, "No, I'm not doing that."
Oh, man.
I said, "Well, you know that Romney didn't win." "I don't know that." He said, "There could have been some other." I said, "Well, whether there could have been or there wasn't. Right now, this is the information." So I'm not going to change. He was a Romney delegate. And so for 2.5 weeks, we knew we won. And yet, what are you going to go out there? If you go out there and say, "Oh, we won," you're a sore loser.
Right.
The media hated me anyway. And so they were just going to make me look even worse. And in the end, there's a chance they did the recount, the certification it's called, and I did win, but there's a chance that I might not have won. Right. So it was a horrible situation.
Hey, thanks guys for checking out the Conor Gallagher Show. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, or comment, or whatever you got to do to support it. And I appreciate that very much.
I win Iowa, delayed, and Romney wins New Hampshire, Newt Gingrich wins South Carolina. And so the next state is the state of Florida, and Florida is a battle, frankly, between Gingrich and Romney because they're the two recent winners. They have all the momentum. No one really knew I won anything anyway, and couldn't raise any money. And so I'm down there campaigning. We got nice crowds and everything, but not really. I knew it wasn't going to happen. So I hadn't been home in 2 months.
Wow.
And so I decided to go home, and so I did. I got home, and that night Bella got sick, and Bella has a condition called Trisomy 18, and Trisomy 18 is a condition. If you look it up, it says incompatible with life. That's the diagnosis, is that these kids don't live long, and the reality is the vast majority of kids do not do well. I mean, 90% die at or before birth. Some of that is because of abortion.
Yes.
And of those who survive, 90% die within the first few months. So it has a 1% survival rate. And I remember in 2016 meeting at the time the oldest surviving Trisomy 18 little girl, not girl, she was a woman. She was 31 or 32.
Wow.
And I don't know if she's still alive. She might be.
That must give you a lot of hope.
It
though.
did. And so, but again, these kids they struggle. It's hard. They have lots of congenital issues. And in Bella's case, she had heart and lung issues. And so anytime Bella was sick, we had, in her first year of life, 2 NICUs, ventilators, long times in the NICU to get her through this problem. And anytime she was sick, we get home. I happened to get home, and she had been doing well for about a couple of years, and she got sick, and we couldn't get her oxygen levels up, and so we ended up having to take her to the hospital. This would have been Friday morning, like 4 a.m, and we got her there, and they got her somewhat stabilized, but on really high rates of oxygen. And the next morning, they ended up taking an X-ray of her lungs, and her lungs were completely full of fluid. And so she was just struggling to breathe because she had all this fluid in her lungs. She had pneumonia, and obviously they were giving her antibiotics and everything else. And so I'm there, and I was supposed to go back on the campaign trail the next day on Saturday, and we sort of decided, I've got to suspend my campaign. And so I called my campaign manager and said, I said, you have to announce we're suspending. I'm not going anywhere if my daughter's here in the hospital in the condition she's in. And he said, I understand. He said, but you just can't suspend your campaign. And I said, well, why not? She said, well, if you suspend your campaign, you've just lost 2 primaries. You're not really being competitive in Florida. They're going to think you dropped out. And I said, well, I'm not dropping out. He said, no, I know that. I said, but, unless you say why you're not in the, suspending, then that's the story. And I said, well, I don't want to bring my daughter into this, because with our experience with Gabriel and other experiences that other politicians have had with kids with disabilities, the media is brutal, and your opponents aren't much better. Yeah. And so I sort of fought it. And then my old chief of staff, who was helping on the campaign, called me like 20 minutes later and said, I heard what you said. And he said, don't you want people to pray for Bella? I said, yeah. Well, how are they going to pray for her if they don't know to pray? He said, so you just say you're suspending your campaign and ask people to pray for your daughter. People will get it. And so that's what we did. And so that was Friday afternoon, late Friday afternoon, we finally put that out there. And so the story goes that night, because, kids always at night do worse than they do during the day. They do. And she's on the maximum level of oxygen. They want to put her on a ventilator, and we're saying no, because last time she was on, we had a real trouble getting her off. Yeah. And so we said, we're going to avoid that at all costs. And so that night, we're there, praying and basically saying, we probably think the campaign's over, because every time she's been in the hospital, it's at least 2 to 3 weeks before she can get out, because she's got chronic lung disease and she's got low muscle tone and all sorts of other issues that just make it impossible to recover from something like this. So we're talking through that, and but we're in incredible prayer and beautiful time together. It's just my wife and I in the hospital room. Felt like a hotel because we're sleeping there, and so throughout the night, I noticed late at night that her SATs, her saturation level, her oxygen saturations, which were bordering on 90 at this high thing, had gone up to 100. And so I went over and turned down the oxygen, and because it was at the highest level, so I turned it down a little bit. And a few minutes later, a nurse comes in and says, did you turn down the oxygen? I said, yep. Okay. And because she was back down to 90, and then like an hour later went back to 100. So I turned it down again. So out the night, I'm up all night and I'm sort of monitoring this. And by the morning, she's on very not much oxygen. Yeah. And so I said that the doctors come around, they round, and they came by her room, and I said, I'd like you to get another X-ray. And they said, well, we just did one yesterday. I said, I'd like one today. And so they bring the portable X-ray in, they do the X-ray, and her lungs are perfectly clear.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And so
power of prayer.
It was a miracle. It was a miracle, flat out, no doubt about it, miracle. And as it was sort of stunned everybody. And I said, okay, I'll wait 24 hours because, trust but verify. So God, you gave us a miracle. Not saying anything, but I want to make sure it sticks, right? Yeah. And of course it did. And so the next day I decide, okay, we're going to start the campaign up again on Monday. And this is Sunday afternoon. And so I call my team and they said, well, we're not going back to Florida because that's Tuesday and you're not going to make any difference then. Next state's Nevada, not going to do well in Nevada, given, my moral and cultural positions that I have on the issues. And so I said, well, what's next? They said, well, Missouri, Minnesota, and Colorado. I said, let's go to Missouri. That's right. And so we went to suburban St. Louis and we called them and said, let's set up an event. And we set up an event at a community college to talk about manufacturing jobs. And I get there and I pull up and I see there's all these people outside the gymnasium where I'm supposed to speak. And so I call my team and said, can you get them to open the doors to the gymnasium? I said, I'm not going to go up there and wait for people to get the doors open. He said, well, I didn't realize the doors weren't open. Let me find out. So I wait, I hear nothing. So I just said, okay, let's drive up. And so the guy opens, comes to the door, my campaign guy. And I said, can you get these people inside? You got to open the doors. And he said, what are you talking about? The place inside's full. This is the overflow.
This is the overflow. Yeah. Wow. And you thought they weren't even inside yet?
No, because I've never had, I did the last week in Iowa, but after that, we just didn't have these kind of crowds.
Yeah.
And so I go into this gymnasium, St. Charles County Community College, and I get up on the stage and I notice two things. Number one, there's like 5 or 6 wheelchairs in front of the stage.
Wow.
Now, I've been to a lot of events, and I didn't really remember that many wheelchairs or any wheelchairs ever at my events. And then I look over to my left, and I see this big Nordic-looking guy, 6'4", 6'5", big guy. And he's got this little girl on his shoulders, and she has this sign, and she's like waving the sign like you won't believe. Crazy. And the little girl, I looked closely, and the little girl had Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. And Down syndrome is trisomy 21. Mm-hmm. That trisomy 18 is an extra 18th chromosome that causes a lot of very severe abnormalities within the baby. Trisomy 21, you've heard more of because most trisomy 21s who aren't aborted survive because it's a less severe chromosomal. That chromosome pair is not as important to certain core functions of the body in development as 18 is. And so this little Down syndrome trisomy 21 girl is waving the sign, and the sign says, "I'm for Bella's dad."
Oh man, that must have just sent you to the moon.
And afterwards I went down and I shook hands with every one of those people in the wheelchair, and every one of them said the exact same thing to me. They said, we're here because we want to thank you for suspending your campaign for someone like me.
Wow.
Okay. He said, we are, we just felt like we were, you saw us and you appreciate and valued life no matter what. And I remember our campaign completely changed at that point. And we ended up losing Florida the next day, and then we lost Nevada. But then we won Minnesota, Missouri, and Colorado all in one night, and ended up having more states that we won than anybody else.
Wow. And
the campaign sort of took off from there. So
amazing. And
it was all Bella.
You tell in your book this story, which for some reason this particular story really hit me. Bella, at some point, she had another breathing problem, and she was sick.
Yeah.
And in the chapter that you're writing, because this book is written chapter, half of it's by Karen, half of it's by you.
We attempted to write it together. My daughter Elizabeth, our oldest, was the editor, and then Karen and I were going to sit down with her, and we were going to talk through, and we were going to write chapters together. And we spent about a half an hour doing that, and realized that we had completely different experiences.
Man, it's like you bug my house too. I mean,
that she would say, well, here's what I said. No, that's not how I didn't feel that way.
So how can you co-author?
You can't co-author something that you completely had different experiences.
Yeah, right.
So we decided at that point, we went to them and said, we'd like to write the book, but we're going to write our own version and put it together.
Yeah.
And I said, well, and I always say, we divided the book in half. It's 18 chapters. She got 11, I got 7.
I noticed you had a few less.
And her chapters are twice as long as my chapters, right? So,
but she earned it.
She earned it. She wrote most of the book, but I got my say in. And so, yeah, and as you know, each chapter starts with love is.
Yes, yes.
Because we always say Bella is a teacher. And God uses her to teach us what love is all about.
The chapter I'm referring to is she's sick, and you say, as I'm sitting here right now, it's early morning, I'm writing this chapter right now, and Bella is laying next to me, and she's got a cold, and it's difficult for her to breathe. So every few minutes I have to rub her belly to kind of stimulate the breathing. Yeah. I'm letting Karen sleep because she didn't sleep the night before because she was dealing with Bella all night. And that scene of you literally typing at the keyboard and reaching down and rubbing Bella's baby, like real time, it just makes it real. It was an amazing little part. And I said, man, this is the real Rick Santorum right here.
Well, okay. So if you read the book, you learn the real Rick Santorum and warts and all, because there's a lot of warts there too. I tell the story that when she was born, I talked about my son Gabriel and what we went through and how it was a devastating thing for me to go through that. And then we got the diagnosis from the doctor that she had this fatal disease, Trisomy 18, fatal condition, not a disease. And in fact, they sent us home after 10 days. We thought, oh, is she going to die? Is she going to die? But she didn't. And so they sent her home on hospice care.
Yes.
And saying, she's going to catch a cold and she's going to die. That's basically what they said. And there's nothing you can do about it. All you can do is comfort her. And so they sent us home with hospice care and a prescription for morphine that we were to give to her if she was struggling and she couldn't breathe, that you would just give her a load so it would calm her down. Well, obviously it calms her down, but it depresses the respiratory function.
Yeah.
And so we didn't know that. I mean, we didn't think through that. At least I didn't. Maybe Karen did, but I didn't. And so she ended up going to a well baby visit with our pediatrician. And so he's examining her, and this was maybe a few weeks later, and he says, are there any prescriptions? And he says, the only thing they sent us home with this. And he looks at it and he goes like this, and he sort of rocks back and says, ooh. And anyway, I said, well, what do you mean, ooh? He said, this is not going to treat it. This will kill her.
Wow.
And so at her weight, I said, okay, we're ending hospice. We're not dealing with these people anymore because they hospice people take care of old people who are dying,
right,
or sick, or people who are, who are fatal, cancer and things. They don't take care of
babies,
infants.
Yeah.
And so we ended that, and Karen was committed, to Mama Bear. That's the other. She's the patron saint of Mama Bears. Yeah. She was fighting for her. I looked at it differently.
Yeah.
I looked at it as, I'm the atmosphere.
Yes.
So the atmosphere is, I've got this whole family. I can't just focus on my daughter. I mean, yeah, she's the central right now, but I got to think about how am I going to make all this hold together? And so I was told by everybody that she was going to die, and there was really nothing we could do about it. So that's how I looked at it. Okay, my daughter's going to die. Now I've got to manage everything else. My wife, the heck with managing anything. I'm going to save my daughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was,
statistics be damned. Yeah.
Didn't matter. She was all in.
Yeah. Yeah.
All in. I was not.
You were not. You can tell the crib story.
That's probably the best example of it.
Yeah. This is amazing.
It's not amazing.
Well, your daughter's amazing. Go ahead. I'll let you do it.
No, you just read it. You probably tell it better than I do. So go ahead, tell the story.
No, well, I think you were getting you were building the mattress. You were building the crib, and you got the mattress, right?
Okay, so so she's tiny. She only weighed like 3 pounds something when she was born, and so we, she's in a bassinet and everything. And so Karen, unbeknownst to me, orders a crib, a big crib.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, why are you wearing a big crib? She's still tiny. She's not going to use this crib. Why are you spending money on a crib?
Yeah.
And a nice crib, I might add.
Yeah.
And so I'll be honest, I'm not happy.
Right.
Right? Because I'm trying to manage things here.
Right.
I'm trying to manage finances because this was not cheap.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm dealing with all this stuff. And so the crib comes and my daughter, Elizabeth, and I,
your oldest daughter.
my oldest daughter, she's, at that time, she was probably 16, 17, something like that. And maybe 17. That's what she'd have been. And so we start opening the crib, and I've got a knife and cutting the thing, and she starts tearing the box open. And I look over at her. I said, "Don't do that." She goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "We're going to have to put that crib back in this box." And she flipped.
Yeah.
She goes, "You don't love her. You don't believe in her." And it just, boom.
Yeah.
Right? And I said, "Well, yeah, I do, but I mean, just got to be practical." Right? And that's what I was. And it hit me, but it didn't change me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how committed I was to managing, right?
Yeah.
Fast forward a couple months later, she's now 5 months old, and she gets a cold, plain old cold.
Yeah.
And she does exactly what they said she was going to do. She's having trouble breathing. She's having trouble dealing with it, and her oxygen saturation. We get one of these little things to monitor her finger, and it starts to go below 90, which is really trouble. And at some point, she just stops breathing. Mm. So Karen, being a NICU nurse, was able to do CPR on her. I call 911, and so we rush her to the hospital, and I'm thinking, this is it, right? And I remember standing outside. We're standing outside, and all of a sudden I'm seeing her. They're all over working on her, putting tubes in her, doing everything. And I walked into the NICU, and I had her arm on a board stretched straight out from her side, because that's where they had the IV, and her little tiny hand. And so I went over there and put my pinky in her hand so she could hold it. And I just realized that she was going to die, or very likely could die. And I was going to hurt that, as much as I had detached myself, and I looked at her and I said a prayer. I said, "Lord, you pull this little girl through, and I promise I'm all in." Mm-hmm. I realized that it wasn't going to hurt less not to love her. It was going to hurt just as bad. And I was going to miss giving her what she deserved. And so she made it through, and I was all in. And tell a little story. I got back out, and my daughter, Sarah, who at the time was, I think, 11 or 12, and 10. She was 10, and she called, and because when Bella had the arrest and she stopped breathing, I put her on the bed, and I said, I'm trying to talk her into breathing. I said, "Come on, you can breathe." And like, Karen busts in, knocks me over, and starts with the CPR, and I go and call it 911. And so Sarah Maria calls me, and she goes, "How's Bella?" I said, "I think she's going to be okay. She's stable." She goes, "Mom was amazing." And I said, "Yeah, she really is, isn't she? And Dad, you didn't do anything."
I know. That's awesome. I knew that was coming somehow. I just knew that was coming. You didn't do anything.
That's also the way it usually is.
Oh man, from the mouth of babes, you know what I mean?
From the mouth of babes.
Oh gosh. Well, you told God you were all in, and you've been all in ever since then. Kevin, we have an image of Bella just from recently. Can you put that up on the screen?
The article?
The article. So she was in the news just recently. Let's see if he can pull that. Here we are. You want to tell us about the St. Pio Foundation and how she just won? And this is Bella here in the. She is 17.
She's 17.
17.
She's all of 4'11".
Wow.
That's just probably as tall as she'll ever be.
Yeah.
And that's our family. We have, and St. Pio Foundation is the man on the left with the mustache is Luciano Lamonarca, who is the head of the Padre Pio Foundation. And he had a situation with a child who was disabled and went through a very horrible end. And so he thought that it would be a blessing, and it was a blessing in his life, the lessons he learned from that, of going through that. And so his decision was to recognize special children as angels of Pio. In the case of Bella, that guy right there, the big guy, not on the other one.
Right.
When he was born, he had a very severe urinary tract issue that was going to require surgery. And we took him to Bartow, Pennsylvania, which is where the shrine of Padre Pio was at the time.
Really?
And they had first-class relics, and they had a Padre Pio chapel. And we took him there, had the relics laid on his kidneys.
Yeah, okay.
And 2 months later, he went in for the surgery, and they did the testing, and he was perfectly fine.
So you got a history of Pio.
So we have a history of Pio,
Yeah.
and so we have a portrait of him in the house, and he was someone we prayed to a lot to help Bella. And so when they offered this to Bella, we accepted it gladly to highlight the Pio Foundation, which I've been involved with and supporting and doing events with them for many, many years, because, Pio's a go-to guy.
Yeah, he is.
And so we're very excited about that. And you see some of our grandchildren. We have 10 grandchildren.
Awesome.
The oldest is 3. That the one on the left there is the oldest.
Oh, so you got 10 on 3 and under?
10, 3 and under.
Wow.
And they all live within 20 minutes of us.
Oh, what a blessing. Yeah.
And so we have another one on the way.
Outstanding.
So we're very, very blessed.
So including Gabriel, you had 8
Correct.
born children.
8 born children.
And then miscarriages on top of that.
Yes.
So 7 living children as of now.
Correct.
And 10 grandchildren. So, okay. So one of the things
and one on the way.
And one on the way. And so, I'm nowhere near where you are, but I got my 3 grandchildren.
Yeah.
I got 2 and 1 on the way. And and I've just, in the last few years, I've gotten adult children. They've the oldest is 23, then 22. And one of the things that I've been experiencing heavy duty in the last really just 2 years maybe is I feel like the dividends of all the investments that I've been making for years, the dividends are now just starting to come back like tenfold, in that I'm seeing my children be happy and healthy adults, or, wholesome adults, I should say.
Yeah.
And the relationship with them is like even stronger today than it was when they were teenagers and we had our little conflicts
No
or whatever.
question about it.
And they call me, as opposed to me just having to reach out. They want the relationship.
My kids, like I said, they all live very close to us. They chose to do that.
Yeah.
And every Sunday they all come over.
Oh, that's awesome.
Kids and grandkids every Sunday. It's an open invitation. So if you want to come after Mass, we go to usually noon Mass, and afterwards, if you want to come over, we'll have some food, and you can hang out. And if they're in town, they're over.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I'm still in baby mode, because we got all these babies, but I'm starting to see that all of this work raising these kids, I'm seeing that the return I'm getting is, oh, look there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know he was putting that up. That's only 15 of them.
That's only 15.
Right. But, I'm starting to get these rewards that I did not anticipate. And it makes me realize I would have done all the work tenfold to get the blessings or the return that I'm getting now. And I'm sure you're experiencing the same thing. It's all worth it. That's my point. It's all worth it.
It is. And I mean, again, I go back to Karen and the fact that she was there and she homeschooled. Our kids are best friends with each other.
Yeah.
They have, relationships with us that are, I mean, amazing. I mean, you're right. My sons, my daughter-in-laws and son-in-laws. I mean, they reach out to us. We are a family, and they're all. There's so much more involved and dedicated to their faith than I ever was.
Yeah, at their age.
And at their age, I mean, it's embarrassing. Frankly, I mean, they embarrassed me, and their knowledge of the faith is more than. I mean, they all went. I mean, we had a bunch of kids go to Christendom. We had a bunch of kids go to, other good Catholic schools. I mean, one of the things I told my kids, I said, look, you can go to any school you want, but here are the ones we'll pay for.
Yeah, that's
right?
good. It's a good way to say it.
Okay, yeah. And so, we were willing to muscle up either by either loans or paying directly. Because we wanted to make sure that all the work we did in homeschooling them wasn't thrown out the window.
Yeah, which statistically
we were fortunate. So we homeschooled our kids all the way, some into high school, but the boys we homeschooled to high school, and there was a great high school in Northern Virginia, in Southern Maryland, called the Heights, which is a Opus Dei school, which is. I can't even tell you how blessed Alvaro Di Vincenzo, who's the headmaster there. I mean, it's a miracle working, incredible place where we've just felt so comfortable to be able to put them in an environment that replicated what we wanted out of our kids.
Yeah.
And
my son-in-law graduated from there.
He did?
Yeah, because his parents teach at Catholic U.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you got lucky.
So we got a good one there.
You got a good one.
Yeah.
And so, which raises the importance of making sure that we support good Catholic education.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking the bargain basement diocesan Catholic schools, which usually are not great.
Yeah.
Some are, and I don't mean to disparage all diocesan schools, because I'm sure some are faithful schools, but most of them are not. Mm-hmm. And
we've looked at that as like it's a little safer than the public schools and cheaper than the nice private schools. So you end up with just kind of lukewarm.
Right. Yeah. And look, if you're an engaged parent, you're involved in everything, you can probably survive a diocesan school. But part of the problem with some of these diocesan schools is they have the name Catholic, and they're as bad or if not worse than the public schools. And so in the name of Catholicism, they teach your kids the wrong thing, as opposed to, when you're sent to public school, you're in a battle, right? So in some respects, it's worse. Yeah. But it's really important to support great Catholic schools, and if you have a diocesan school, to the extent you can take it over and you can influence it. I mean, I know not everybody can homeschool. That's certainly the thing I recommend to everybody. Yeah. You certainly can homeschool your kids through the first few years of school. I mean, homeschooling a kid in first grade takes an hour a day.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's just be honest. I mean, there's just not a whole lot of material there in first grade, and the idea, I can't do it. Yeah, you can. I mean, you just can. And so, and that time at home with their brothers and sisters, or even alone if it's only one kid, is with the mom or dad or both, is just, you can't make it up anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, I talk about, one of my little books is called The Architect, and the idea is mom and dad need to be the architect, the chief builder. That's what the Greek word means. Chief builder of your entire environment. And so you gotta take control of their educational system, their technology, their social life, their professional life. If they're working at the bagel shop, you have to control these things, and you make a wholesome environment to where then they have great autonomy moving in a safe environment. But there are too many parents, to kind of go back to what you were saying. parents are playing the victim card by saying, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't control what they're getting exposed to.
Not to. Let's just be honest.
Exactly.
I mean, we choose material things over your children.
Yes.
And you can say, well, my kids need, no, they don't. Fill in the blank. Well, they need food. Yes, they do need food.
Yeah.
Okay. And they need shelter. That's need shelter. Do they need a really nice house? Do they really need to go to all these different camps? Do they need to do whatever? No. They need you.
That's right.
And they need structure, and they need faith. And you may want all those things, but I can tell you, and your kids may say they want those things because the other kids have them, but that's because you're not forming them in a way to understand what really is important in life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. You know, since we kind of got into the education just a little, and the point was homeschooling, the point was family, not really education per se, and I thought this was an interesting spot for you to talk a little bit about the intelligent design work that you did. That's pretty, that was
a long time ago.
That was a long time ago, but it was really important. And I think it's, I don't know if it's a lost cause now, but could you talk to us about what you did? That was, everyone just kind of, we're going to talk about, your work on your partial birth abortion ban in the next episode. We're going to talk about the gay marriage issue, but a lot of people, I think, don't remember the work you did on intelligent design.
Well, it's because it was stealth. And because we wouldn't have gotten it done if it wasn't stealth. I think it takes more faith to believe in evolution as an origin of life than it does to believe in a creator, right? I mean, the idea that chance, time, and the application of natural law is going to create all of this from nothing,
from no designer,
from nothing, right. From nothing. I mean, zero, nothing. Is
just illogical.
It's illogical, and it can't happen. And so there had to be something or someone that started everything. And so to me, the fact that we were teaching godless evolution and that it was an unguided process about how the world came to be and how we came to be is a heresy, and is a lie. And well, can you prove it's a lie? Well, can you prove it's true? And the answer is they can't, but they get to teach it, and we can't teach the other. And so there were a lot of folks out there. This was over 20 years ago, who were put at the Discovery Institute out in Washington D.C., Washington State. Got to know some of those guys out there, and so they had a counter theory, which I'm not saying I buy into the entire theory, but it's the idea that there is a designer, right? And that they're, the watchmaker, right? If you find a watch sitting in the forest, did you think that came about by time, chance, and the application of natural law, or did someone make that watch? Well, that watch, as complex it is nothing compared to the human cell, for example. So the idea that there is some design is something that should be taught, the alternative to evolution. And so that was something I cared about. And there was a bill coming through called No Child Left Behind.
Man, that was a memory, when I was researching you and everything. It's like, man, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, No Child Left Behind, which was not one of the best things we ever did as Republicans, but nevertheless, George Bush, that was his big thing. And so they're pushing this bill through in the early 2000s. And you reach a point at the end of this weeks-long debate where both sides agree, okay, we're going to limit the number of amendments, and we're going to, once those amendments are dealt with, then we're done. Otherwise, it's unlimited amendment. You can go on and on and on and on. But both sides wanted to pass the bill, so they agreed to agree to it. And so I put in an amendment. And initially, it's just a placeholder. It says, okay, it's an amendment. And I put an amendment on life. That's what I said. So my amendment just listed, it was a list of topics and who authored them. And it said Santorum life. And so anyway, It comes to the time where they said, okay, are you going to call up your amendment? And so I said, okay, I'll call my amendment. So I actually take the amendment to the floor and I submit it and I say, here's my amendment. And so when I come down, Hillary Clinton's down there, Barbara Boxer's down there, Ted Kennedy's down there, Dianne Feinstein's down there, Debbie Stabenow. I mean, they're all, Maria Cantwell. I mean, every left wing, Patty Murray. I mean, they're all gathered around. And so I submit my amendment, and they all gather around and in the back of the chamber. They got staff coming in and out. And finally, I'm just sitting in my chair waiting because they put the place in recess because they had to understand what this amendment is. And it was a 2-sentence amendment. And it basically said, that when it comes to teaching about biological evolution, teach the controversy. That's all. I mean,
teach the controversy.
Teach the controversy.
Just recognize there's a debate.
Recognize there's a debate. And so half an hour, Ted Kennedy comes over, and I'm sitting at my desk. He comes over and he says, we've looked at this, and we don't see how this has anything to do with abortion. And I said, oh, Ted, this has nothing to do with abortion. He said,
but it's called life.
Are you serious? He said, it's not nothing. You're telling me this has nothing to do with abortion. I said, no, it has absolutely, it has to do about academic freedom. That's all. Okay. So he goes back, staff coming in and out, this little circle in the back of the chamber. 10, 15 minutes later, he comes back and says, will you promise me that this has nothing to do with abortion? There's no angle you're trying to get.
He's like reading it upside down. Like, how does this have to do with abortion?
Because it's about life.
Because it says life.
It says life. I'm saying this amendment about life. And I said, no, it has to do with the origins of life. It has nothing to do with abortion.
The origins of life.
He said, not
the ending of life.
He said, will you promise me, senator to senator, that there's no hidden abortion thing in here? I said, 100%. I said, if there is, I'll pull it. He said, okay. So you bring the thing up. Kenny gets up and supports it. Boxer gets up and supports it.
Oh man!
Said this is the kind of stuff we should be doing. Freedom of inquiry, all this kind of stuff. It passes.
Amazing.
I said, I want to vote. There were 3 people, I think it was 3 or 4 voted against it. And they were conservative Republicans who don't think we should be telling schools what to do.
Right.
Okay,
right.
Fine.
Right.
And so we put it in there. The next day, the Washington Post runs this huge article about how Rick Santorum slipped in intelligent design in the No Child Left Behind bill.
Oh, man.
Okay. And Kennedy's interviewed saying, he lied to me. He didn't tell me what this was really all about. I'm going to get this thing repealed, because we had passed the bill by then, because I was one of the last amendments added. And see, that'll never come out of the conference. And so I give credit. In the end, the chairman of the House Education Committee vowed to me that he would not take it out of the bill. He said, I will not. And at the end, when this came down to the very end, he stood firm with it. He said, this is the one thing they want out. And he said, but I'm not going to give it to him. And so they negotiated and left it in. And that chairman of the House Education Committee, John Boehner.
Really?
John Boehner got that provision in.
I'll be darn. Wow.
So there you go.
So where is it today? Because it seems to me that you can't talk about intelligent design in public schools. I mean, is it still in effect? That's why I said I think it's like.
So here's the thing the reason he got it in is he got it in report language. So it's not a mandate, but it says the Congress wants this to be done. And then there was a court decision called the Dover decision in Pennsylvania, which basically said, you can't be teaching this stuff.
Oh, man.
So that's what happened. And that never it got appealed, but it never made its way to the Supreme Court.
Wow.
And here's the sad irony of the whole thing. And I'm embarrassed to say it, but I'm going to lay it all out. The judge who made that decision, I appointed to the bench.
Are you serious?
No, he's a Republican who just he became David Souter.
Oh, man. What is about the left drifting? Like the drift to the left?
Power.
Okay, yeah.
That's
a real dynamic.
It's a real dynamic. I mean, if you have power, then you want to use that power, right? Because you're good and you're doing the right thing. And, I have this authority, so I want to use my authority. And so the more power you have, the more the more government has to say in what happens, then the more power you can exercise.
Yeah.
So it's a natural drift to want to get what you want as the law of the land.
Yeah.
And so that means the government is making these decisions. And so, I mean, I remember when I first got to the Senate, I reached out to Justice Scalia, and we had lunch at AV Pizzeria, which was this little dive Italian restaurant. You walk in, it's like, plastic grapes and Mario Lanza on the radio. And I remember sitting down with him, and we had a great conversation the first time I ever did this. And I said, Justice, if there's one thing you could change about the Supreme Court, what would you change? He said, I'd move it to the equivalent of Peoria. Get it out of Washington.
Oh, wow.
He said, that's what the Germans did after the Nazis. They broke up the government and didn't locate it all in one place. They put their Supreme Court out in like some little town
that makes
outside.
A lot of sense.
He said, it really is important. He said, once, and it's again, center of power. Once you're around it, everybody you talk to works there at the government. It's just, it becomes part of who you are.
Too many cocktail parties.
What you read the Washington Post, you don't talk to real people. And so that's part of the problem. These judges get into their little cliques and they don't go out and talk to real people.
A little bit more on family. And we've talked about some of your family members. I mean, I could keep going on everything you were just talking about, but I wanted to get out, you in both the books that I've read, you tell the story of a man who brought up a bracelet that says family.
Yeah.
This is a good
Mike,
one.
oh, what's Mike's last name? He's going to kill me. I always forget Mike's last name. So Karen and I were given a talk in Wichita at a Catholic conference in Wichita back in the late 90s, I think. It was about marriage. So we both got up there and spoke at this Catholic conference, and we talked about marriage. And at the end, Karen had just written letters to Gabriel, which we really haven't talked about.
No, we can. I'm happy to.
But it's an amazing book. Our son Gabriel, who died, I mentioned prematurely, is an incredible story of the impact of his life, not just with us, but really beyond. And she wrote a book about it called Letters to Gabriel, where she, when she found out that our son had a fatal abnormality, she, with all of our kids, she would write a diary about when she found out she was pregnant and sort of keep a diary for it. And she turned that diary into where when she found out at 18 or 19 weeks that he was going to die, she started pouring her feelings and thoughts into that. And so we got the diagnosis, and long story short, that we were able to find a doctor who was willing to do intrauterine surgery. He had a valve that wasn't opening and closing, and therefore his bladder was just huge, and there was no amniotic fluid, because the baby's pee is the amniotic fluid.
Yes,
they swallow and they pee, and that's the amniotic fluid.
Right.
And so they had the post-urethral valve, so it's in the urethra, and it was closed and it wouldn't open. And so we ended up going to a hospital in Philadelphia. They did intrauterine surgery, and they were able to fix it. But a couple of days later, she got an infection from the surgery in her womb, and it was becoming full of horrible infection. Yeah. The amniotic sac and the placenta was infected, and it was affecting her. And she had like 103 fever, and so I had to rush her to the hospital, and she went into labor because her body now wants to expel the infection. And of course, it was one of the worst, maybe the worst night of my life, where she was saying, "No, he'll die." I said, "Well, if you don't let this progress, and in fact, they need to accelerate the progression, because the longer it stays in, you could die." And so they encouraged the labor to continue, and she ended up delivering little Gabriel, and so that's when I talk about that. But the interesting is that, again, I don't mean to run down this rabbit trail, but that happened, as I mentioned, at the same time that I was on the floor debating partial birth abortion.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And
which this is just a story of Providence that you can't make up.
And during the debate, all of the people who were arguing that this process of late-term abortion should be kept legal and this horrific procedure was in cases like Gabriel, where they found out that baby was not what they were expecting, or not even Gabriel, cases like Down syndrome or Bella, that late in pregnancy, they found out their baby is not perfect. And so they wanted abortion. And you see that, like, Iceland announced last year that they now have 0 Down syndrome births. Right. Yeah. Well, there's only one reason you have 0 Down syndrome births is because you're aborting all these children. And they were out there calling for the aborting of disabled children. That was their argument. And I remember getting up, and this was before this all happened. I said, and I mentioned that my wife has a sonogram, and with our son, and I have no idea whether there's going to be anything wrong with that, but it doesn't matter. If there's something wrong with him, I'm not going to abort him. If he was 19 weeks old as opposed to 19 weeks gestation, and he got sick, would I kill him? No, you do everything you can to save your son. Well, that would be the same thing here. And then we went to that sonogram, and we found out he was going to die, right? Yeah. And so I don't know why I may have gone off the rabbit trail.
No, it's wonderful. But all of that was going on when you gave that talk, and the guy came up to you with the bracelet.
Yeah, and so
that's the backstory.
So that's how we got to the conference, because Karen wrote the book, and she wrote the book about going through this whole process, and it was, again, no offense to Tan back then, but we shopped that book to everybody.
That was long before I was involved.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
And nobody
actually. What year was this?
1997.
Oh yeah. I was still in high school.
So we shopped that book to everybody, and no one would take it.
Wow.
The foreword, by the way, it wasn't when we were shopping it. We didn't know who the foreword was going to be, but the foreword actually was written by Mother Teresa.
Oh man!
And we actually I'll never forget it. A priest friend of ours, Father Fasano, got to another priest who knew Mother Teresa, and he asked her if she would do it. We said we got word back that she would, but we heard nothing until this little letter shows up to our house. We open it up, and it was typewritten on a manual typewriter, right? Because you could see the things are off.
Yes.
So it was manual typewriter, and she writes she wrote it out, and at the bottom she handwrites, "Let us pray, Mother Teresa."
Yeah.
Right. And so we actually put the letter in the book, so you could actually see the letter of her foreword. And gosh, I'm running off rabbit trails.
It's good. They're all good rabbit trails.
But I'm what point was I just making?
All of that was in the book, Letters to Gabriel.
Okay, and so we couldn't find a publisher.
Couldn't find a publisher.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And finally, I was at this Catholic conference, one of these conferences where there's marketing people on, and I was invited to speak, and I just ran into all these people, and I would just say, anybody interested in it was ridiculous. And these folks who did saints videos out of San Antonio, never published a book ever, and did these videos of the saints on DVD, said, we're thinking of starting a publishing, we'll do it.
Does the name Alan Napleton mean anything?
Alan Napleton.
Oh my! I had no idea. Oh
Alan Napleton was the guy who did it.
Okay.
That's who I ran into.
It's Uncle Al to us.
Okay.
He was on my board for
Uncle Al.
For 12 years, 15
published
years.
the book.
And I went to his funeral not too long ago.
Oh, I didn't know that he died.
Yeah. About 6 months ago, I went to Texas. I flew to Texas to go to his funeral. But he was running CCC of America,
CCC,
the little videos, the Our Lady of Fatima videos, St. Nicholas video.
Yes.
Dude, I know him. And
it's the only book they ever published.
Well, this is coming back now. I remember Alan actually talking about this. This just flushed all back through my mind.
The book sold out. I mean, they sold 25,000.
Alan Napleton.
And I can't tell you the number of letters. How about that? The number of letters we got from people, and the number of babies that she saved in writing that book. And someone finally it went out of print because they stopped publishing. And so someone else contacted us, and it's in 2 or 3 languages.
Wow.
People have picked it up, and then they have a paper. You can get it in paperback now.
Amazing. So
there you go.
Yeah, Alan Napleton was one of the real unsung heroes of the Catholic marketplace, and then he started
Catholic marketing.
Yes,
that's where I met him.
CNN, Catholic Marketing
That's
Network.
where I met him.
Was that the talk you were going to talk?
No, it was
that
a different
one.
When I was in Congress, I got to a lot of Catholic things.
Yeah, sure.
I was sort of
the Catholic politician.
There were a lot of Catholic politicians, but
nah, you were
really. Not really.
It says right there, you were the Catholic public, capital letters.
I don't know.
It says it right there, so it must be true.
Must be true.
Right.
It's written.
All right, so family, the bracelet.
So we're at this event, and we're talking about marriage being sacrificial love. That's really the key to a successful marriage. You can't go into marriage thinking, well, this is, a 50-50 deal, and that, I need this out of my marriage, or I need that, or you're all in, giving everything. And if you get stuff back, that's great. Right. And I said, it's all about sacrificial marriage. And so we go to the book signing for Karen. So Karen, and I'm standing there next to her, and this guy, Mike, I can't remember his name. I can see him, big guy, comes bouncing forward, and he's yelling at me, and he's saying, it's the answer. It's the answer. And I said, well, what's the question? And he said, what would Jesus do? And I said, I've got the answer. And he shows me, because remember, this was back when the bracelets of
WWJD.
WWJD, everyone used to wear these WWJD buttons. He says, I've got the answer, and it's FAMILY. Forget about me, I love you.
Yes, yeah.
And so I said, that's awesome.
It is awesome.
And he handed me one, and I wore it. Every day. And for years, he would, every now and then I'd get a bunch of family bracelets. He now had they used to be cloth, and now they're the standard things. You get the silicone bracelets. I think he's out of that business, or out of that apostolate, but
it's a perfect little mnemonic device.
It is the best mnemonic device of it. And so I wore that bracelet. I've sort of run out again. And the reason I run out is I wear them, and I always have them facing out so people can read them, and people see them, and they, that's really cool. So I take it off and give it to them.
Right.
So I try to give it away as much as I could, because that's, keeping it going.
Forget about me, I love you. And you talked about it in at least 2 of your books, maybe more. So I knew that really, there's just no simpler way to distill down what family's supposed to do. And so that struck me. And you got you're a big family guy. Having Bella must be like having 20 kids. I mean, it's just a lot of work, Yeah,
but she can't walk, she can't talk. She's fed through a G-tube. She's a perpetual 6-month-old.
Yeah.
Right. But
is that mental capacity?
Yeah, mental capacity. Right. So,
okay. So she's still a baby.
She's a baby. She'll always be our baby. And I don't know if I put it in the book or not, but one of the things I always think about when I think of Bella is, once I sort of came to terms with all this, I went through the experience I talked about. I remember looking at her in the crib shortly thereafter, and just realizing that, she might live a long time, and we hope that she lives long, and I'm going to be into living a long time. And I said, I'm going to have to care for her, maybe the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I said, and she won't be able to do anything for me.
Yeah.
And I just looked at that, and I kept looking at her, and it just hit me. I said, well, that's how God sees me. I said, I am completely disabled in the eyes of God. I can do nothing for him, nothing that he needs. He doesn't need me. I mean, he could get someone else to do whatever his great plan is. I am completely disabled. All I can do is all Bella can do, which is to love me. It's all he wants. It's all I want from her. And it's all he wants from me. And so again, Bella, the great teacher.
It's unbelievable. That's just a priceless insight. You talked about how your faith developed over time. When you lost your Senate seat, was that any kind of crisis? I mean, this had been your identity now for a long time. What
it was one of the things that where I saw my wife really upset with me, because the night I lost, I knew I was going to lose. In fact, when I started running that race, it was a horrible year. It was 2006. We lost like 11 seats in the Senate and like 40 or 50 seats in the House. It was just a meltdown, horrible, horrible Republican year. And I was running in a state with a lot more Democrats, and running against someone who was running as a pro-life Democrat. And so it was
Bob Casey.
Bob Casey, Jr.
Jr.
And,
yes, Jr. His father was very pro-life.
He was very pro-life. Yeah. And so I knew several months out that I had very little chance of winning that race. It would take a miracle. And so, I lost, and I was like completely at peace. I said, it's just God has something else for me to do. I don't know what it is, but I'm fine. Oh, you can't be fine. You can't be. I mean, she was really upset. I mean, I never lost. Right. I won every race. She goes, you were never supposed to win any race. I said, yeah, I know. But this one, he said, no, I can't believe you're not upset. I can't, and so we it was difficult. But I was at complete peace. And I felt like, God has something else in store for me. And I'm really okay with that. And because you heard some of the stories, but I've had so many things happen. We'll talk about them in the next episode that just showed, you know what? Every loss that I've ever had, whether it's a loss of a son or a loss of a bill or a loss of a multitude of other things, it's all turned out for the best.
Yeah.
And so I really don't have any fear of losing, because losing is just a step to success, right? And losing is for doing the right thing. Losing is glorifying God, right? You say, I was losing glorifying. Well, how's dying on the cross glorifying God, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because it's God's will, right? You just live with God's will, accept it, and make the best of it, and try to follow what he wants you to do. And I felt called to do things and I've lost. I mean, did I make a mistake? No, I don't think I made a mistake. I mean, I tried to be faithful in doing what I was called to do. And I always look at it that, we see this much of reality and there's all this. And to say, well, yeah, but I lost and I wanted to win. Well, but you can't see what the Lord sees. And so you don't worry about it.
You talk about divine providence in a couple of your books. I mean, you use that phrase, and whenever I see that phrase, my antennas perk up. I think that one of the best books, one of the top 2 books that Tan publishes is a book called Trustful Surrender to Divine Providence. And we do another one. That's a little book, which is easy to read. You can read it in an hour. Yeah. There's another one called Abandonment to Divine Providence by Jean-Pierre de Caussade. But I prefer this little one, Trustful Surrender to Divine Providence. And it's about this. It's about this divine orchestration of your entire life, everything that's happening. There's so much more at work than we ever realize. I've begun to think about the divine physician who prescribes bitter medicine for us to swallow for the purpose of our spiritual healing. So I just wanted to ask you what the sufferings you've had at the hand of the media, out of your skeptics, difficulties in politics, and of course your family sufferings that you've had. Because you've been hinting at this whole divine providence thing. When you think of the phrase divine providence in your life, looking back on it, hindsight at the age of 67, what do you have to say?
Okay. It's like the little engine that could answer you're not going to like, right? Because it's sort of simplistic, but I've lived my life and I've seen the blessings of God that flow from doing his will and doing it as best you can and failing, and the incredible blessings that come from it. So, I mean, it's as simple as that. Yeah. I mean, I wish I could say I've got this great theological or philosophical thing. It's just, I'm a witness, right? I mean, I'll tell you story after story after story of loss after loss after loss, and how God has blessed me so much from that losing. And we'll talk a lot about that in the next show, but it's like I was at a retreat the other day for our company, one of my companies, and there were some Protestants there, and we were sort of getting back and forth, and I just said, I'm just not smart enough, right, to do this whole theology thing on my own, right? That I just sort of—
It's a good answer to Protestants.
I just accept that there are a lot smarter people who thought and prayed and were in the presence of our Lord that know this better than I do. And my job is to be obedient. I mean, that's really it, right? God came to found a church. He didn't come to do anything but found a church, right? He didn't write the Bible, right? He came to found a church. And so that's the church he founded. These are the people he trusted. I'm in, right? And I'm not going to think too much about it other than try to be obedient to what the church teaches. And sort of the same thing, which is I'm not going to think that hard about great things like divine providence. I'm just going to do it.
Right.
And,
that's good.
And so people ask me all the time, how did you plan your life? I said, I didn't plan. I don't plan anything. I really I didn't plan to run for Congress. I just did it. And it was the stupidest thing I could have ever done, but I won. Right. I mean, the chances of me winning that race were just never, I mean, my wife, I met my wife when I was practicing law, and I wasn't supposed to be in the office that day, but I happened to get home early from a thing because someone canceled a thing I was doing. And so I got home and I wasn't going to go to the office, but I thought, I'll just clean off my desk so I'm not, because I'd been gone a few days. And I got there, and the person next to me in my office, I shared a secretary, said, I'm so glad you're here. I'm supposed to go and take this recruit out to get her to join the firm. And I said, but I'm really busy. I said, nope, just here, leaving. Sorry, can't help you. And literally, it was like, it's the Bible story of, knocking. And she finally came in, and she was in tears. And she goes, I'm going to, I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. And the person who's the recruit was my wife.
Oh, man.
Okay. And did I plan that? Did I do anything to deserve that? No. And so I just, but when you see it, when it sees it, when God's called you, just do it. You think through it. No, I don't. I mean, I ran for president, just to understand. I lost my race in 2006 by the largest margin of anybody incumbent in the United States Senate in 30 years. I lost by 17 points. 3 years later, I announced I'm running for president.
We put it like that.
Who does that? Right? No, nobody does that. Right? And so the point I'm making is just you can't. You just don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Right? Just try. And now I would say this, that you're probably going to have a better understanding of what God's call for you in your life if, number one, you're well formed.
Yeah.
So your conscience has some understanding of what right and wrong is and what God's call of your life is. Number two, that you're prayerfully close to him. One of the things I always found out is that when I sort of had this transformation is that God speaks in whispers. And the closer to him, the more clearly you're going to hear that whisper. And if you're far away, you may not hear it at all. Or if you do hear it, you may not hear it correctly.
Yeah.
And so, prayer life is important. Sacraments are important. All those things that keep you in touch, right?
Yes.
And that formation to be able to judge what's real and what's not. And after that,
don't worry too much.
Just don't worry too much about it. If you're doing what God's calling you to do and you have a rational basis for doing it, it might not be. I mean, I might have been wrong. Maybe God didn't want me to run for president. You know what? If you're out there doing the right thing for him, doesn't matter whether he actually called you, because you're doing the right thing for him.
Right. He'll
bless it.
Absolutely.
Tan Books is here to help you become a saint. That's why we do everything we do. We publish thousands of titles, literally, that are specifically written to help you get to heaven. Everything from the lives of the saints to the writings of the saints, the greatest doctors of the church, the great spiritual masters, Alphonsus Liguori, St. Francis de Sales, and so on. So please come to tanbooks.com and find the book that God wants you to have right now so that you can get to heaven and be a saint for eternity.
In terms of running for president, we'll talk more politics and policy next episode. But what was the impact on your family? And everybody talks about Gabriel and Bella, but you have these other amazing kids who are like along for the ride. What was the impact on them? I'm going to get some more coffee here.
Well, there's the impact on the family. I always say when people would ask me, and it happened throughout politics, but really intently happened when I was running for president. People would always come up and say to me, the most common thing that people ever said to me was, how can I pray for you?
That's a great question.
Okay.
Wow.
And I had the same answer every single time, no matter where. And I would say, pray for my wife and children.
That's a perfect answer.
Because when you're in politics, you're in the arena. You know, the Teddy Roosevelt quote, if you haven't read the Teddy Roosevelt quote about the man in the arena, do it. It's an amazing quote, and it's true. But you're out there and you're bleeding, you're sweating, and you're doing all that. You're in the war. And in today's world, I'm in the war, but the enemy just doesn't fight me, right? You're not a gladiator fighting. You've got folks in the arena who are throwing barbs and things at your family in the box watching the fight, right?
For sure, yeah.
And that is they just get dragged in. And in our case, because I was who I was and I was taking these you can be a conservative. It's not hard to be a conservative, and now things are changing in the conservative world with MAGA, but to be a conservative, it was hard to do because the press was always against you. As long as you didn't talk about cultural issues, you really didn't get that hard of a time.
Right.
It's only when you mention the A word or the M word or other, or the T word or, any of those things, that's when the media just levels you. They come after you. They don't mind you being pro-life. You can be pro-life. You can be pro-marriage. Fine. Just don't talk about it. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to change what the left wants to do. Just vote and be quiet. And 99% of the guys who go to Washington, D.C. know that. They get it, and they don't. No one, when I was there, other than maybe one or two other people, would even talk about these issues. We even go to the floor and defend these issues because they knew that there's a big price to pay, right? And you become not just a conservative, but you're an ultra conservative. You're an alt-right. You're an extremist. I could be pro-life and not be an extremist. But if I'm pro-life and I actually try to change the law, you're an extremist. Yeah. Okay? So they make you pay a price for that. And so as a result, then the price is not just what they say to you, but what they do to your wife and kids. Oh, man. Right? Because then they bring them in because they're complicit in who you are. Because if your wife was really a good person, she'd be stopping you from doing this. And I can't tell you the number of conservative politicians I know whose wife were not, who shut them up. And at the highest levels, who shut them up and said, you're not going to be talking about this. And so and it's because of the pressure the media asserts on the family. Yes. And so, if you want to protect me, protect them. Yes. Right? Because it's hard. And I will tell you, they took a lot of arrows and it was very painful.
I'm not sure any politician has ever been attacked so viciously from the far left than you. I can't imagine who
Trump
has been.
Well, Trump now. He brings it upon himself
for different reasons. I mean, he kind of begs for it,
right.
But you, the viciousness that this gay community has, leveled against you.
Yeah, the abortion community is tough. The abortion providers and the advocates, they're tough, but the gay community is a whole nother level.
A whole nother level. So I was just kind of curious, without going into detail or anything, but I mean, did you have to like go home sometimes to when you were running for president, was there social media yet? Like, was like Facebook up and running?
A little bit.
You know what I mean? But
it wasn't like it is today.
Right. But I mean, did you have like teenagers crying because of things and you had to sit down and say it's almost over? I mean, what was that like for the family?
In 16, it was worse. Yeah, it was really hard on one of my kids. Very, very, very difficult. And I mean, it was, I look back and, running again in 16 was just a mistake. I mean, there's one they say, well, God called you to do it. Maybe he didn't on that kid. Maybe it was me. I don't know.
Right.
But it didn't work out. And it wasn't a great experience.
Yeah.
And it really took a toll on my kids.
Yeah.
And
do you think they were mad at you?
No, I don't. No, okay. I don't think so.
I mean, I know you're very close to them now. No, I'm not even implying that but it's normal if a teenager kind of like blames dad.
I think one of my kids was certainly not happy with how it was going down. But in 12, it was just, in 12, it was just me. No one wanted me to run. I mean, I just thought that this was the right thing to do. And when I went and talked to I always tell this story, it's a true story, which is, I had no intentions of running for president. And then Obamacare happened and I was dealing with Bella. And one of the things I'd heard, because I was involved with all these Trisomy 18 organizations and trying to learn about it and talking to people from all over the world. And what I was finding is that places that have socialized medicine, kids like this just don't get care, right? They just let them die. Now there's exceptions like Japan. They really do an amazing job with these kids, but Canada, Britain, other places, they just don't have any survivors.
Yeah.
And because they're just not given care. And so I saw Obamacare as you're going after my daughter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
And so I decided, I'm working at Fox at the time, but I decided to go out and, try to give speeches about it, talk about it. And I really got involved with opposing Obamacare from outside. And then when it passed, I thought, I've got to do something about it. And anyway, so what happens? I'm at I think it was a CPAC, and I gave a talk and I talked about that. And I'm walking through with Mark Levin.
Oh.
Mark Levin and I he spoke right after me, or vice versa. So we're walking through to go to get our cars. And a guy walks up to me and says, "Hey, I'm from Iowa, and I'd like you to come and speak to our group." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "He'll do it." That's Levin.
That's
right?
Levin. Yeah,
he'll do it. And I said, "Well, no." I said, I'm not. He said, "No." He said, "No, he'll do it. He'll do it." And I said, "Okay, fine, I'll do it." So I give him my number. I keep walking. Guy's calling me all the time, and I'm just not responding. And finally, I get so upset with this Obamacare thing that I said, "Okay, I'll do it." I said, "I want to come and talk about healthcare," and I was going to also, believe it or not, talk about Iran. And
which I got questions next episode.
Sure.
Of course, I had to.
And so he said, "Great." And so so they put out a press release that I'm coming to speak, and I get a call from a reporter from Politico who says, "Hey, I see that you're going to Iowa." I said, "Yeah." He said, "You're running for president." I said, "I'm just going to, a group asked me to come and speak." And so I said, "Yes." And so I'm going. He said, "Oh, so you're not running for president?" I said, "No, it has nothing to do with it. I'm just giving a speech in Iowa." "So you are running for president?" And I said, I am not, and I'm not. I said, he said, "Why you assume that I'm running for president?" He said, "Nobody goes to Iowa in the fall or winter, whenever it was, unless you're running for president." I said, "Well, I'm not, and I'm not am running for president." Okay. And
sounds like a politician answer.
Right. And I said, "I'm just going to give a speech." So I'll never forget that night. I'm sitting with my mother-in-law and with the kids who were over visiting her, and Fox News is on. And next thing I know, I'm not watching TV. She is. And she goes, Rick, you're running for president. And I said, what? He said, it's right there. It's on the crawl on Fox. Rick Santorum considering run for president. Politico publishes it. That's the story they write. Rick Santorum heading to Iowa considering run for president. And so I show up to Iowa.
It wasn't actually dishonest.
No.
That sounds like it was pretty accurate.
Considering, right? I guess, but I wasn't. I mean, I certainly had no idea. So I go there and C-SPAN is there and like 300 people, place is full. It's on a horrible night. And I'm thinking, wow, I can get my message out. And so I schedule something for New Hampshire. Same thing, big crowd, C-SPAN, everything. And so I just start, one step after another, right? And so I finally, it's like early 2011, and I have a little meeting with my wife, and I go through the whole thing. She knows the story, but this really wasn't intended, but this is really something I think God wants me to do. And she goes, God couldn't possibly want you to do this. And I said, well, I don't know. I said, it's like I said, it seems like he said, God could not possibly want you to put your family through another campaign. And I said, how about if this is really a horrible thing for me to say. How about if we pray about it? And she said, no. I said,
she doesn't need to pray on it. She knows the answer.
I said, I know the answer. I said, you can't do that. I said, you have to pray. No, I don't. And I said, okay, I'll put you down as undecided.
Put you down as undecided.
Put you down as undecided. So several weeks later, things keep rolling along, and I have another talk. And I said, we have to have this talk. She goes, I know. And I said, have you prayed about it? Because I don't want to do it. I said, and I know you don't want to do it.
That's not what I asked.
I said, it's not what you asked. And she said, I always knew you were going to do this.
She was just resisting the inevitable. Wow.
She goes, I don't want you to do it. I said, no, I understand. I said, but you do know this is something we need to do. I don't want you to do it. And I said, I got it, but we need to do this. She goes, yes, I know we need to do this.
Wow.
And that's how it happened.
Powerful stuff.
And the only person in the family who was for me doing it
is Bella.
No, she had no opinion. Was at the time, my 12-year-old, 13-year-old daughter, who had like a binder of how I was going to win she was like really into it. And she
was your chief strategist.
She was my chief strategist. She was like, oh, you can do this. You can do this. And like 6 months into the campaign, she reneged. So that I had nobody in the family at that point who wanted, because I wasn't going anywhere.
Wow.
6 months in, I was still dead in the water, and everybody said, okay, quit. It's over. You're never going to do it.
Wow.
So there you go.
So when in the first time when you were really gaining traction in 2012, won a number of states, what's like the dirty side behind like a presidential campaign? Do people show up in your motel with a big bag of money, and say like, hey, here, I'm going to buy you off. If you wish, if you wish, this is, if you win, I want this favor. And here's what's that kind of, well, I mean, I was an outsider, and so the biggest problem I have is I couldn't raise money because I was not the anointed candidate. Right. And I was also the social conservative candidate. Right. And I was also candidly a Catholic candidate. Yeah. And an Orthodox Catholic candidate. And a little tidbit of information for our Catholic listeners. In every state where Catholics were a significant portion of the population, save one, I lost the Catholic vote. That's actually not very surprising to me.
In Ohio, I lost the Catholic vote. In Michigan, I lost the Catholic vote. In Wisconsin, to Romney.
Yeah.
Okay. So I lost it to a Mormon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
The only state where that was not the case were states where there was not a significant population of Catholics. Like I won the Catholic vote in Alabama. I won the Catholic vote in Mississippi. In one state where there is Louisiana is a completely different Catholic environment than any other place in the country. Right. really, I mean, you want to talk about something that has stuck with my wife in particular. She just never, that all these well-known, wealthy, influential Catholics all supported somebody else.
Yeah.
None of them supported me because, and I don't know what, and part of it is, I think a lot of folks who are successful Catholics in the business world, and particularly Republicans, worked really hard to be accepted.
Yes.
Because in Catholics weren't generally part of the club.
Yes.
Right. And so they made their way to the top. They're now accepted. And so they don't want to go back to the ghetto and supporting a Catholic candidate because he's Catholic.
Yes.
So you go along with the guys at the club who were supporting the guy from Bain Capital. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, it sounds harsh, and I don't mean to sound harsh, but it was just true. And I just can't tell you the number of people said, well, it's not time for a Catholic. It's not time for someone like you. You mean someone who's authentically Catholic?
Well, those people put Joe Biden in office, and they would say.
Well, I don't think they put Joe Biden in office.
They would say he's a devout Catholic,
I would not say that those people put Joe Biden in office, but what they do is they don't support authentically Catholic people in their own party, right? And that's been a big problem, and it's one of the reasons you don't get authentically Catholic people.
Yes.
And in a lot of higher up, because if it's the choice between being for the ghetto Catholic candidate and someone who's acceptable to the club, right?
Yeah.
You take the club.
There's a dynamic here at place, kind of relates, but we're in Gastonia, North Carolina. When my dad grew up here, North Carolina was less than 0.5%. Okay, a Catholic.
Now like 4?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's super low. And so, in this little town, there was one tiny Catholic church, and there's just a handful of families. And there's so my dad grew up hanging out with the Jewish kids as much as anybody else because the Catholics weren't very welcome. So if you were there is this whole like Flannery O'Connor Southern Catholic thing. Because if you were going to be
you're Catholic, you're a Catholic.
You had to mean it.
That's why I always say I did really well in the southern states.
Exactly.
Because if you're a Catholic in North Carolina, you're a Catholic.
That's it.
If you're a Catholic in New York,
it's just cultural.
It's cultural.
Yeah, that's the difference. And so, and even me, as I was growing up, I was probably the only Catholic kid in the neighborhood. There just wasn't many of us, And so you had to mean it.
Yeah.
You just had to mean it.
Exactly. You were countercultural.
Yeah. So that I think that explains.
Oh, absolutely.
What happened.
I know. I get it.
Yeah.
But it's something
still
that
hurtful.
Really hurtful.
Yeah.
To my wife and kids that folks that you would think would be with us were actually out there working against us.
Well, I guess you didn't have a whole lot of privacy in your life. You have all these kids. You had the medical issues in your family. It was probably a difficult way in a sense for the family to kind of grow up. But, in that regard, getting out of politics, did you kind of feel like maybe you missed it? Maybe you miss it. I don't know if you miss it, but let me ask, do you miss it?
Sure. Would I like to be president? Absolutely. Would I like to be in the Senate today? I don't think I'd ever run for the Senate. I have no desire, but I ran for re-election because I wanted to be there.
Right.
And I felt like I had a very successful substantive career in getting a lot of things done.
You got a lot done.
And maybe I couldn't get those things done today. Probably not, but I don't know. And part of it, I wish I were there because I think one of the MAGA problems is there's not a great amount of ideological consistency with a lot of what MAGA is.
Yes.
And having someone there that can provide some bones. Because I'll tell the story about MAGA and my involvement with the origins of MAGA, which is I wrote a book after the 2012 campaign. I was a social conservative candidate, but I was also the blue-collar conservative candidate. I was running on manufacturing, bringing manufacturing back. I was on immigration and on trade.
What was the debate when you said, and this was like MAGA before MAGA, that's my point, you said, I propose no tax on manufacturing.
Yeah.
That's better than tariffs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the negative of tariffs.
Yeah.
It says if you build here, you don't get taxed, as opposed to tax that way.
Why did that not go anywhere? That is so simple.
It's simple and it's less. And so I had the reverse tariff idea. I was not a big. I mean, I don't mind tariffs, and I actually voted for tariffs and supported tariffs on specific things when I thought that countries were being, undermining our businesses deliberately using illegal matters. Having said that, I was the big, talking about minimum wage laws, and I mean things that were not Republican fair. Energy. I mean, I went up to North Dakota and used to carry around a piece of shale rock with me, and so I wrote this book afterwards, and I always tell the story about at the Republican convention in Tampa in 2012 when Romney was coronated. He asked me to speak one night. And the night he asked me to speak was a night where he had a whole night dedicated to small business people coming out and going after Obama, who said, you may recall, he said, you didn't build that. Remember, he talked about the guy in his business saying, oh, you didn't build it. Government helps you with your business. And so he had all these folks, black, white, Hispanic, Native American, women, whatever, one after another coming out. And then I came out and gave my little talk, and I talked about workers. And I made the comment at the that not of all the people he had come out there, not one of them brought one of their workers. They didn't build that company alone. They had workers help build that company.
Yes.
You don't build it by yourself.
I don't like the phrase "self-made man."
Yeah,
I've never really liked
there's
that.
no such thing.
Yeah.
And so the reality is, I said, do you know how many people own their business? What percentage of Americans own their own business? Like 5 to 7%.
Yeah, that's right.
How many people work for those businesses? 75%. Not really broadcasting here. You're sort of narrowcasting a whole night of your convention, speaking to 5% of the public who already vote for you.
Yeah.
Right? Why don't we go out and talk about workers and have a worker? So I wrote a book afterwards called Blue Collar Conservative.
Yes.
And so I did my thing, radio shows, all that TV, all that kind of stuff. And I get a call after I did a radio show in New York from a friend of mine saying, hey, were you on the radio this morning? I said, yeah. He said, New York. I said, yeah. He said, did you talk about Donald Trump? I said, no. He said, well, Trump just called me and said that he heard you talking about him and he wants to talk to you. And I said, this is 2014. And I said, no, didn't talk about Trump, but happy to talk to him if he wants. So long story short, he asked me to come and see him. And because he wants to talk to me. So I'm in New York like 2 months later, and I walk into his office. He's sitting behind his desk, and he's holding up a copy of my book. He said, I read your book. Great book. And I said, yeah, you didn't read my book. He said, I read your book. Someone needs to run for president on this book. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I'm thinking of doing that myself. And he said, well, so am I.
Whoa.
And I said, oh, really? And he said, yep. And I said, so I quizzed him about the book. And he absolutely read it. I mean, There's no doubt in my mind he read that book, because we talked for 10 minutes about the book. And there were some things in there that if he hadn't read it, he just wouldn't have picked up. And so we finished talking about the book, and he started talking about how he connects with working people, and he talks. I talk simply, and I can connect with them, and so we talked this whole time, and at the end, he spends all his time talking about how the White House is not as nice as his house, and the Air Force One is not as nice as his plane, and then it would be a step down for him to do. And I said, okay, so I left. I think he's not going to run, and he ran,
and he came down the escalator,
and he came down, and I ran against him in 2016, and he never said a negative word about him. It's the only one that he didn't have a nickname for.
Right.
Only one he never said anything negative about.
I hadn't thought of that, but yeah.
And every time I saw him, he couldn't have been nicer to me. And
it's because he was playing from your playbook.
He knew it, and he admitted it. He was playing from my playbook.
How much are you playing from the Pat Buchanan playbook?
None.
Really?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean,
do you even see why I asked that?
Yeah, but
I don't mean it in a bad way. I just mean like how much did his policy thinking influence you?
No, not much at all.
Okay.
I mean, I consider myself a conservative who understands that conservatism isn't about just growth.
Yeah.
It's about growth is important, and we need growth.
I'm literally going to ask you in the next episode,
Okay.
like, do we always have to grow out of our problems?
Yeah,
you know?
we need growth. Growth is an important part of an economy, but we also have to, we have to make sure that everybody, it's sort of the Kennedy thing, rising tide lifts all boats,
Yeah.
except if your boat has a hole in it. And if your boat has a hole in it, then that rising tide is scary as heck.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of folks who have holes in their boats because of drug problems or mental health problems or because of lack of education or because of family issues. And those people are not doing well.
Yeah.
And relatively speaking, are they doing better than people in Tanzania? Yes.
Right. But that's not our standard.
Okay, but that's not our standard, but it's not something you should ignore either, right? I mean, you have to realize that and this is part of the whole, is that your effort can't be about giving things to people. It's about giving people the opportunity to provide for themselves. And I did that with welfare reform.
I was about to say.
I did that with
that was a huge success.
Huge.
And you were working with Bill Clinton on
yes.
that. That's amazing.
Yeah, and we got a bunch of Democrats to vote for it. And again, there's ways to make these things work. At least there was. And if you orient toward making sure that you're giving people the chance, and you probably know Arthur Brooks, but Arthur Brooks talks about earned success. And if you don't have earned success, you're not helping people. You're not making their lives better.
Yeah.
If you're just giving them things so they can survive.
Yeah.
And that's just that and that's what the left does, and that's something that I have fought very, very vigilantly against. But Trump, took that on, and I give him a lot of credit. He did a better job than I did.
Well, you are the blue collar conservative, and it's awesome. Now we're wrapping up. This is like a big segue and getting to the political theory and policy and stuff, which we're going to do at our next episode, right after we eat lunch here in a minute. But to finish off the family faith kind of topic, what do you want your kids to say about their dad when he's dead and gone?
Oh, I don't know. I don't. You're asking me a question to think about something in the future, and I mean, I don't think of that way. I just frozen. Do the next right thing,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure my kids will say a lot of things. I mean, they will, and that's okay. And because my kids are very free about telling me what they think of what I say and what I do, I mean that I love them and I love the Lord and that's it.
That's it.
I mean,
that's a good tombstone. He loved us and he loved the Lord. That
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's, I don't know.
You're not a guy sitting around trying to plan your legacy.
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm 67 years old, but I got a lot to do.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of kids, got a lot of grandkids, got a country that's in really bad shape, and have family. I have a church that I'm worried about.
Yes.
Very concerned about.
Yes.
I felt so blessed to live at a time when I was in office of John Paul II.
Yes.
I mean, it was because I was in office from 1990 to 2007. So all but the last year.
Yeah.
And then Benedict.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And that I felt like the church was in great hands. And having that incredible personal experience. I'll tell you a story because I'll finish up the family with a great family story.
Sure.
So the first time I met John Paul II was in 1999. And at the time we had 4 children and we're expecting our 5th. And Gabriel would have been our 6th, so the living children. So we had 4 children, and I met a man who was a Polish American who worked for John Paul II's foundation in Poland, and knew the Pope very, very, very well. And we got to be friends. And he said, "Hey, if you ever want to meet the Pope, let me know." I said, okay. And so we did, and he set up a time for us to go over there, and had John Paul II, when he was Pope, used to do a mass at the papal chapel, which is next to the apartment, at 7:00 every morning, except Sundays. And he said, if you, I can get you into the mass. I said, awesome.
Sign me up.
Sign me up. And I said, my kids? He said, absolutely. I said, okay, great. And so we signed up, and my wife is one of 12, and her husband, her mother and father came with us to help watch the kids, but also to do this. So, we put the request in and everything. And so he said, what's going to happen is you tell me the hotel you're at. And, they'll call in the afternoon of the day before and let you know that you're in for the next day. That's how you find out. I said, okay. So we gave them that, and we're there like one day, get a call in the afternoon, and, we have 6 tickets. And I said, and the guy at the desk called us and told us that. You don't even talk to them. They just leave the word at the desk, and the desk calls you. And I said, well, wait a minute, it's supposed to be 8. Because we have 4 kids, and he said, no, it's just 6.
You got the in-laws.
Yeah, I
too.
got the in-laws. He said, no, it's just 6. So I said, oh, what am I going to do? And I said, well, I'm just going to show up. It's Italy. Va bene, right? So I show up, and this Polish friend of ours has a Polish priest who works for the Vatican meet us there at 6:30 in the morning, and outside the Bronze Gates. And so we're there, and so we're talking, and I said, hey, we have 8. And he said, oh, I'm sure we can make it work, because the 2 kids are little. They can sit on your lap. You only can take us 6 seats. So he goes up, Swiss guards there waiting. They're not let us in yet. And so they're talking to them and talking to him. And I'm picking up a little, I speak a little Italian, and it's not going well. And at the end, he says, no, he said, your in-laws can't come. They're not on the list. And I said, they came all the way over here. He said, when we get in, I'll call Bishop Dziwisz, part of the Polish mafia, Cardinal Dziwisz, right?
Okay.
So he was the Pope's secretary. And so I said, great. And so we finally get in, and he calls. He's not there, not answering. So we're down there waiting. You have to wait. You get in there, and you have to wait like a half an hour. Everybody gets all organized. And we're down there waiting, and he's not calling back. My wife is crying. We're just like, they're not going to let him in. And so, my mom, I said, you and your mom go, I can stay. I don't have to be. No, you can't do that. And so anyway, they gather there. So we're about to go up the stairs and leave them behind. And the phone rings. It's like, it couldn't have been a better movie set. And
right.
it's the bishop. And he said, oh, yeah, they can come. So he gets the Swiss guard, and everything's taken. So they go. So anyway, we're rushing around. We're way behind. We're catching up to everybody. So we get over there. We have to go up 2 flights of steps across 2 courtyards, then up 5 floors to get to the papal apartment. So we get in there, and they put you in a little anteroom. And it's the 6 of us and like 30 Filipino sisters. Okay. And so they, and we're waiting around, and in comes Bishop Dziwisz, and he's talking to folks, and he comes over to us, and he talks with us a little bit, and he said, okay, we're ready to go. He says, here, come up to the front of the line. I said, no, that's okay. We'll sit in the back, because we got 2 little kids. They're off their schedules. And he said, no, you're up in the front. So we go up to the front, and we walk in, and you walk into the chapel, and it seats about 35 people. And you walk in, and right in front of the altar is the Holy Father kneeling in prayer, facing the altar, on right next to where the people sit, right in the middle of the altar. And so we walk in really quietly, and I'm sitting like this far away, right? And I've got my little 4-year-old son on my lap, and we're watching him. It was the most incredible experience I've ever seen. He's in prayer, and his face is like doing things a face can't do. I mean, moving in ways, and it just contorting, and it just, and I'll never forget the expression of my son. He's like, his eyes are like this, looking at the face of and he must obviously been in such a deep state of prayer. And then we watched as his face slowly started to calm down. It got calm and he opened his eyes. And I thought that one time I want to pray like that.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And so he then got up, vested, and every time he would go up to the altar and then come back down to sit in the chair, he would pause and catch the eye of one of my kids, smile at them or wink at them and do something to catch their attention.
Man.
So we finish, we file on out and we go into the library, which is a large room with a table in the middle of it. And we're the last ones out. So we start heading to the back of the line. Bishop Zivich intercepts us and says, no, come up here to the front. And I said, no, that's okay. We're good. We made it through Mass. We're going to be good in the back of the line. He said, no. He walked over and he pulled me over and he stands in front of me and he pokes me on the chest and he says, important man.
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm a senator, big deal, right? So what? Yeah. And I said, no, I'm not. Does this. Important man. And I, again, protest.
Right.
And he waves his finger one more time and he really
hits you.
He really hits me. He jabs me. And he does this, points to my children and says, important man.
Oh.
The only reason we were in the front of the line and the front of the church, because we were the only one with kids there.
Yeah. It's not because you were a senator.
Not because I was a senator. Okay.
It's humbling.
Oh. And so I'm like, okay, I'm humbled. He walks away and my wife looks at me and says, do you have the books? And I said, the books? You mean your book, Letters to Gabriel.
Letters to Gabriel.
She had signed a book and she brought Crossing the Threshold of Hope for him to sign. And I said, Karen, do you realize what was going on down there? I said, I wasn't thinking about the books. I was thinking about getting your parents up here. I said, I don't have the books. I said, I thought you had the books. She goes, well, they're in the stroller down by the Bronze Gate. I said, he's coming out in a minute. You have to get the books. I said, I'm not going to have to. He said, you have to get the books. So I walked over to so here I'm now chasing Zivich down. And I said to him, I explained the situation. And he looks at me and says, run. So I go out of the library into this little anteroom. And then I go to the doors that lead to the hallway. And and they're locked. I can't open them. And I'm like jiggling them, trying to open them. And I realize they're locked from the inside. They're bolted.
Oh, man.
So like I unbolt them, throw open the door, and the Swiss guard are standing there thinking, someone just killed the Pope and is leaving.
It's fleeing.
And they're literally trying to, they're grabbing me and say, what are you doing? And I try to explain to them in English. And then I just say, Bishop Zivich told me to do this, Bishop Zivich. And so they somehow were able to validate that. So they let me go. So I run down 5 flights of stairs, cross to the courtyard. It's 90 degrees outside and it's a hot June day. Go down the steps, get the books, come back up the steps, run up the stairwell, get into the library, and the Pope's at the last person.
Oh, man.
So I've missed the entire thing. And so I walk in, I am completely covered in sweat. Okay. Just look like someone threw a bucket of water over me. And I look at Zivich and he does this. So I walk to him and he walks to where the front of the table is. And I show him the book and he takes the Crossing the Threshold of Hope book and he says, you keep this one, the Letters to Gabriel book. So the Holy Father by that time is coming forward. Zivich turns and signals my wife and family to come over to the table. He puts the book on the table, his book, and he signs it with us gathered around him, right? Beautiful pictures. And then he takes the book and hands it to my wife. And so I'm standing there with the book with Letters to Gabriel, and I turn to Karen. I said, and she's like bawling. And she goes, I can't.
I can't.
Okay. And so I turn around and I said, and so I don't say anything other than I start explaining the book, right? Go through the whole thing about, my son and died and all these things, and to tell the whole story. And he takes the book, walks right past me, and goes to my wife, and he holds the book up and he goes, "Letters to Gabriel. Thank you."
Wow.
Okay. And then he does this. And so Karen thinks he's going to give her a blessing, but he doesn't. He gives her a hug.
Oh, wow.
And so she's just like,
man.
a puddle, right?
Yeah.
And then he walks away. I never meet the Pope. I never get introduced to him. I'm Karen's guy.
Yeah.
I'm a dad.
You're right.
I'm a husband. And it was the best experience of my life.
Wow. You're an important man because you're a husband and you're a father. And both of those men helped you see that. Wow. It's not because you're a senator.
No.
Wow.
I'm a nobody compared to those important jobs.
Well, you're a really great nobody. So, I think we should go eat lunch because we're going to come back and film the second part of this, and we're going to talk politics and culture. But this has been amazing. Thank you. I hope you feel like you got to say everything about family.
I got to finish my one other John Paul II story because I got to finish it off.
Yeah.
So the next year, 2 years later, the Jubilee year is 2000. 2001, Sam Brownback, who I was his sponsor into the church.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And anyway, he and I, he really led it to get the Pope the Congressional Gold Medal. And so we put a little, he wasn't traveling at that point. It was 2001. He was sort of not in great shape. So we got a delegation together and went to Rome to present the medal to him. And so I was able to bring Karen along with me. And so we go there and we're in the Clementine room and, we're doing the whole thing. And so the Pope comes out and she sees Jivich. And she goes, "Oh, there's I don't know if it's Cardinal there, it's Bishop Jivich." She goes, after this, she goes, "Why don't you go up and ask him if we can go to the Mass, go to Mass while we're here in town?" I said, "He's not going to remember me." I said, "No, I'm not, it was a couple of years ago." He said, "No, go." And I said, "I'm not," it's finally, keep knocking, you do it. So I did. I went over and I said, "Hello," he looks at me like he's never seen me before.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And so I'm doing that. I'm trying to, and it's like, I'm getting nowhere and I'm just, okay, forget it. So I go back and say, "It's not going to happen." She goes up. He recognizes her. They talk. They have a wonderful time. He comes back and said, "We're going tomorrow." I said, "We're going to go to Mass tomorrow." He said, "Yeah." He said, "We can come tomorrow." I said, "Great." So the next morning, the two of us, we get up and we go to the Bronze Gate. We're sitting there waiting like we did before. And there's a group of priests and the two young guys. Okay. And so the two young guys, one of them, they come up to us and they say, "Are you Senator Santorum?" in English. And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, I'm such and such. I'm a seminarian from Erie, Pennsylvania."
Oh, wow.
I said, what's the chances of that? Right.
Right.
And so, we talked, had a picture, and anyway, we're looking. And so I look over at these priests, you could see them out of the corner of my eye, and they're like looking over at us and obviously talking about us. So I thought, I'll go over. So I walk over and they said, I said, "Hi, and they said, "Hi, we're from Philadelphia. We're from the 25th anniversary class of St. Charles Seminary in Philadelphia."
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And we're here to have Mass with the Pope.
I knew that seminary. Yeah.
So here I am, my wife, they pick out the day we're in town to do this. Everybody at that Mass is from Pennsylvania.
Wow. Perfect.
That I was a senator from, right?
Wow.
Okay, figure that one out, right?
Right.
And then we get in there and Jivich, and they asked me to do the reading. So I did the reading for the Mass at the Pope at his apartment. Okay. So that was amazing. Fast forward a year later, I was asked by some folks at Opus Dei to speak at Jose Maria, at the time blessed, Saint Jose Maria's 100th birthday.
Oh, wow.
Celebration at Santa Croce. They were doing a symposium and they wanted me to present a paper there on, I can't remember what it was. I said I would do it. And at the time, my spiritual advisor was an Opus Dei priest. And he was going with me, and he said, "Is there any chance that you could?" Because he knew I had these mass with. Any chance you could get a mass with the Pope? So I called my buddy and a Polish guy, and he set it up. And so get the call, all that. So we show up 7:00 at the Bronze Gates, standing there. And again, gaggle of priests, because that's usually what it is, almost always clergy, right? Who he does the mass with, as the shepherd would. And so there, and this time, these group of priests are like looking at me, pointing at me, and I'm thinking, what the heck is going on? So I walk over and I said, hello. And first guy says, are you here every day? So it's a guy in English, right? So remember, you're in Rome. There's a universal church.
Yeah.
So I get a day. Guy says, are you here every day? And I said, what do you mean? He said, we're from the 25th anniversary class of St. Charles Seminary in Philadelphia.
Oh my gosh.
Our brother priest last year said they saw you here.
Amazing.
And here we are again.
What are the impossible chances?
And so that's sort of my experience with the Holy Father. And obviously each time I got a chance to actually meet the Holy Father and talk to him a little bit. So
Amazing.
Yeah, all good.
We miss that man. He was the world's pastor.
He was
really.
amazing.
Yeah, he was.
It was amazing.
Well, thank you for doing this. This has been an amazing episode. You're a man you loves your family and of authentic Catholicism. You love your faith. You love your God.
God has just blessed me. I mean, I'm somebody who you have to beat over the head, and he did. He's done it enough that I've gotten it.
Amazing. Senator, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks guys for checking out the Conor Gallagher Show. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, or comment, or whatever you got to do to support it. And I appreciate that very much.